We're beginning the special bylaws committee meeting on Sunday, December 9th at 7 p.m. We are on the lot at Studio City, Radford. And I will do a brief attendance call. Eric Previn, here. Brian Carroll.
Here.
Barry Johnson.
Here.
Nancy Kramer.
Here.
Jeff Carter, excused absence. Peter Cole.
Here.
Patrick Lewis, excused absence. Okay. So we can begin. That was the call to order and roll call. And the update by the committee chair is me, and I will make a very brief update, which is tonight we are meeting on an agenda item, but I want to be clear that, we should try to accomplish what we can. We want to remain as simple and clear for our constituents and stakeholders as we possibly can, especially with also the plan of what we're trying to accomplish, because I think we're looking at the way, the very structure of how the neighborhood council is set up, so we should be respectful of that and thoughtful about it. And that's my comment. I think we can accomplish what we want to do tonight, which isn't too much. And, the second part of the conversation is a little more open about, the bylaws in general. So, with that said, we can open it up for public comments. For the record, we have a member of the public here, Lucy. Thank you for coming. If you have something you want to say, either about neighborhood council, anything that's not on the agenda tonight, but under our jurisdiction, feel free. Do you want to say something now or not now?
I have a question.
Sure, raise
since
it.
I am a newbie here, how does this the neighborhood councils relate to or deal with City Hall?
Sure.
How influential? What
Good
voice
question.
do they have?
So I think neighborhood councils are primarily advisory little groups or agencies that advise the city and get information from the community and represent those community stakeholders with the city. We are mostly advisory in terms of the actual power. We often joke we don't have much power. There's a small budget for each neighborhood council. There are 99 in the city. Mm-hmm. Each one gets sort of $40,000 $42,000 that they spend on various community outreach and events and things like that. So we do have a council member who leads us sort of, although we are our own entity, so we can disagree with our council member, or agree with them. So we have advisory capacity mostly. There are some land use issues where we're quite important because, as you know, neighborhood councils can be a real stick in the mud if you can't get the support of the local. So that's the gist of that, and that's sort of the answer to that one. You're welcome. So now we can move on. Barry.
I just have one before we get to number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Just a request. If you have a meeting on an unscheduled night, can you poll us in the future? Because just going through my email and seeing that there's a meeting 2 days before, that's not good enough. I need to, and I even do it with my own committee for our regularly scheduled meetings just to know that I'm going to have a quorum. But at least for these days, particularly when it's a weekend, because you're one of the few chairs that ever schedules anything on the weekend, please poll us.
Absolutely.
Because it's really hard to
agreed.
Change things around to be here tonight.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate the comment and registered. I will try.
Okay.
It's a fair point. And with that, let's move on to the analysis. So, without spoiling the outcome, spoiler alert, what we've been thinking about is how the 15 people who sit around our horseshoe and are the board members are elected. And we've been imagining that, the way elections are done in America, frankly, are you live where you vote, traditionally. So, you register at the county registrar recorder, you're a registered voter, and you live in an area. We thought that by defining 10 of our board members as people like that, who actually register to vote here, we would be covering a fair piece of the story. And because this very body, the neighborhood councils themselves, are supposed to be a little bit inclusive beyond that, imagining, as I was mentioning offline earlier, that there are other kinds of stakeholders, we want to include those kinds of characters. So without further yammering on by me, we imagine that there could be 5 seats on the board that could be those kinds of people. And those kinds of people would include an employee who works in the area, or a business owner who owns a business here, or somebody who's a member of one of a series of community groups that are in our operating procedures. We have a long list, and we're not trying to limit it. We want to be inclusive in this space. So that's 10-5. That's why we call it the 10-5 board composition. And the way it is now is different. The way it is now, it's more complicated. So we've been pushing toward this, and rather than talking about the way it was, we want to be kind of focused on, could we make such a revision, and would it be the right kind of thing, and what would be the technical details of doing that? So that's what we're doing now. So I would like to go around the room and hear what people's ideas are about that. If they have any specific questions, we can get to the arc of what I think I'd like to do, which is to decide very specifically what is reasonable to try to show the board as a reasonable new way to go, because the old way is confusing. And that's the goal of tonight, is to try to put that packet together and see what else we can do. So, Barry.
Not to be a killjoy,
No, of course.
but Dunn is never in a million years going to approve this before May 16th. And I know this for a fact. So it's all fine and dandy to have this meeting and others about this, but there is no rush, because they are not going to do anything before May 16th. I guarantee you. I mean,
No guarantees.
yeah.
Is that because of your experience?
It's because I was in here Friday, and John Walker, who's our former president, walked by, and he's on the mailing list for the neighborhood council, and he sees these agendas, and he said, "Oh, what's this all about? This meeting tonight?" And I spent 30 seconds giving him the short version. And he said, Dunn is never going to approve that before an election. And he calls Gracie Lou. And Gracie Lou says it's not going to happen before an election, because Gracie Lou takes his calls. Unlike probably anyone else on our neighborhood council, she wouldn't take a call. But John is a bigwig in Studio City, and it seems like everyone, including the mayor, takes his calls. So he found out from the horse's mouth within 20 minutes that it's not going to happen. So I'm just telling you what I know,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying our present list of categories is necessarily 100% great, but I don't know that I like this 10-5 either, and I would like to spend 6 months figuring it out, not 6 days or 3 weeks between now and January. And the other thing that worries me on the 10, if you look at the amount of people that vote for homeowner categories now in the past and renter categories, the renters don't, despite you living in a complex with maybe 100 people, they don't turn out in numbers to vote like the homeowner category. And if you look at the total votes for homeowners and renters over the past elections, it's probably 3 times the homeowners that have voted. So what you would be doing with that 10 is probably assuring that all 10 or 8 out of 10 are homeowners, and there might be 1 or 2 renters. And I think we need better representation from the renting people than 2 out of 10. But I'm afraid that's what we would get based on the numbers of people that have voted in the past. So that's I think all I have to say right now. But I just say,
Yeah, well, feel free to chime in.
I say this needs to be slowed down and thought out carefully, and we definitely have until May 16th, because it's not going to happen.
Well, I appreciate that. Let's again, as I say, feel free to chime in as we move forward.
I have a question about that. Do we know how many those numbers between, like, how many houses versus or eligible voters for?
I just remember in the last couple of elections, if
Sure.
you added together the votes the people that turned out to vote for homeowners versus the people that turned out for renters,
Yeah.
it was 2 or 3 to 1.
But I mean, election aside, like just in terms of registered voters within city lines that are homeowners versus renters.
I believe it's like 60%, it's like 60 or 65% homeowners and
okay.
35 or 40% renters, something like that. But the homeowners are more.
Yeah.
Do you have to be a registered voter to vote in these elections?
We are saying yes. I'm saying yes to that. It's not
For
clear.
the 10, right?
Yeah.
The 10 seats.
For the 10 seats. So that's the way we're going to, because previously there have been problems identifying which category you fit in. Because, for example, I am an owner, but I also work here, so I fit in
Yeah,
different categories, so I could be sophisticated about
Yes.
where I want to run.
Yeah.
So we thought for the renter and resident category, owner, that by checking voting registration, which is
Yeah.
easy for governments to do because that's what they do all the time,
Yeah.
we would be eliminating an enormous headache.
Yeah.
So that's why I like it. I will say, not in response, but you could have right now we have 15 residents on our board, even though we have these elaborate categories to make it so that they're not.
Because they've run for categories other than
But the
even though
outcome,
they
is,
are
the
a
outcome
resident.
is there's not a single outside stakeholder, which is the whole purpose of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, is to include not a single person who doesn't.
We
register to
have,
vote.
though, had
but we
over
do-
the years,
I
just
appreciate
not
that.
now.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, but we do not have a single one, so it's not working great at including those other categories.
But over
everybody is a
my
resident.
14-year history, I always remember people that were outside and did not live here. This is, I believe,
No,
the first
but you
board
have a great,
that
and you're an
isn't.
institutional memory that is very, very valuable. But at the moment, we have a bunch of residents, so we're trying to include more. And the idea of the other stakeholder, because remember, the renters and the owners, you could have 10 owners or you could have 10 renters. I mean, it's about politics there because the seats are open to anybody who is a registered voter. So that's not a high standard as long as you live here and can register to vote. So, I think that there are a lot of people who live in buildings where they rent who might have a chance to compete, especially if they could see what they're looking at. I think one of the problems of the previous iteration that was cooked up by John Walker, who says there's no chance that this could move forward, is that it was
He's
labyrinthian.
quoting Gracie. He's not saying it.
No, I know. And again, I mean, I could point out the number of times that Gracie has said one thing and then been changed
Oh,
back.
totally.
And, they work ultimately, as we all do, for the mayor. But none of us work for the mayor. But I mean, there is the city's decision, and they have ways of it trickling down. So we are being, in good faith, trying to improve something that was not great last time. As you recall, it's worth mentioning. Last time we voted, they sampled some electronic stuff. There was a data breach, which could not have been more embarrassing. The actual election itself resulted in unbelievable confusion, and there was a perception that the old team was administering the election and putting people in voting categories. It was just not good. So the whole idea behind simplifying is to create one kind of ballot with two kinds of categories and a youth. We have a youth person that we'll talk about in a minute, and see if we can't get some traffic, get some people to participate and say, hey, that would be fun. There are other challenges with our setup, although a lot is working well. We have great meetings. We have good influence, I think, in downtown sometimes. But we're just trying to get more people to opt in. So this is our simplification plan. Go
I'd like
ahead.
to add another comment
Sure.
to that. The fact that the homeowners have currently or whatever have a bit bigger stake. Just from my personal experience, homeowners have. I mean, I mentioned this at the government meeting. They have more at stake. You're looking at a 30-year mortgage on your house, whereas, I mean, I have clients. I manage clients that are young. They're in their 20s, and today they're in Valley Village. Tomorrow they're in Studio City, and next year they're in Burbank. I mean, they don't have the sort of bigger care and concern. So that may be why they don't show up to vote, because they're not invested in the community.
But Dunn won't let you use that as a reason. The fact that somebody's got more money and they can be in a home with a mortgage versus somebody that can't afford a mortgage and is renting. They will come down on us like that if we use that kind of reasoning.
But we're not. I'm just explaining
Yeah.
to you.
No,
why.
but I'm just saying if we go that route, and I believe they would question the 10, because we'd end up with 8 to 10 homeowners and there'd be 1 or 2 or 0 renters.
But we have 0 renters right now. You
No,
just
we
said.
don't.
No, we don't.
How many renters do we have?
That's my question, actually. Do we know the current breakdown of renters versus? You said all 15 are current residents of the city.
Keith rents, but he rents from Sussman up on a mansion in
But
the hills.
our
He's a
rental
renter.
category
Yeah.
is 3.
But Brian rents, so
Three.
that's 2. Yeah. And who's the third? Is Vicky? Everybody else is an owner, I think.
There's 3 though.
So of the 3 that were elected as renters currently, one of them doesn't even live in Studio City. He's not renting in Studio City.
No, Rita was a renter, but
No,
she
Rita
ran
wasn't.
for a renter seat.
No, she didn't. She was business. She has
Oh.
a business in Studio
Okay,
City.
So who's the? Let's see. Denise doesn't rent. Welsh doesn't rent. Sussman doesn't rent. Schiller doesn't rent. Schwellenberg does rent, but he lives up at the mansion. Rado. Oh, maybe.
No,
it's Rado.
Patrick rents.
Patrick.
Yeah,
President.
that's our
So
3.
the point of this is to get more renters, but you're saying that would be the.
Well, I think it's to decomplicate the process of
Yeah.
elections.
And by the way, again, I think that a resident category means, here's what I think. I don't think we should judge people whether or not they have enough to make a mortgage or enough to make rent. I think we should judge people on where they live, because it's like, this is our community. So that's why I've taken away that line of we have to have 5 renters and we have to have 5 owners. I think that's, let the market tell us how that's going to go, because if you're an active renter and you're annoyed with your neighborhood, you will get people organized, and if you're an annoyed resident who can't stand X, Y, and Z, you'll do it the same. So that gets people interested, and they're good people. I want to be able to vote myself for the people. When I see a guy with a hat like that, I say, I like that. I'm going to vote for that guy. You know, when I see a scarf like that, I say, that's my person. I want to be able to choose. So that's why I think one of the big changes that we're looking at is also, we're going to have it be one ballot per stakeholder. So this is where we're really changing the landscape, because anybody can vote in our election who's a stakeholder, and that's a much lower bar than having your voter registration here.
So there'd only be 2 ballots.
3 if you count the youth.
Right,
One-
but the
one
youth.
ballot.
No, one ballot.
There'd be one ballot. Here's
No,
what we're
because
measuring.
somebody could come and be a
3 categories.
stakeholder.
3 categories, 1 ballot.
Well, the youths only vote for youths.
No, that's the way in the old model, but we want to revisit that, and we should talk about that, because what I think is that, to make it simple, Barry Johnson comes in and goes, give me that ballot, and he takes a look and he sees 3 categories. The residents, he votes. The stakeholders, he votes. And the youth, he votes, even though you're not a youth.
But somebody
'Cause
that's a
otherwise it's
stakeholder that doesn't live here, they're not going to be voting for the 10.
Well, that's
Are
where
they?
that's where we disagree, right?
But
Because
they
that's-
are.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Okay.
I'm saying
Yes.
that in order to have it be, because if you are a guy who works at Sportsman's and you know, for example, Barry Johnson is that guy who is a good, he should be able to pull the ticket for you. Absolutely. We want to be able to vote for the people in our community, not just the people in our same category.
And
Because
it's
that's
likely
just
that
weird.
you don't even know the people in your same category, whereas you know the business owners and you know the,
Right. But I want to respect what you're talking about, because these are a little different and things are going to be changing a little bit. But our hope, and I think our mantra should be, is this making it better and clearer, or is this making it protective and weird? Because I think protective and weird is not what we're after. We've had a little of that in the past. I don't want to point fingers at. I think these things get put together because maybe they felt there was a shortage of that kind of thing. So let's create a whole separate, let's again move forward. So maybe we should talk for a moment about the youth vote, because that hasn't come up with this group before. I know that there's a lot of kind of tension about it, because people realize that they can't really vote, so what's the point? And we want to include them in our process is the answer to that, because we like young people, we want to build new board members for the future. It's about civics, but the way it was designed was kind of silly. There would be very few votes, because only 1 or 2 people, if anyone, would even know about it, because none of the adults, where there were much larger numbers, were voting for that category. So we thought, why not just have it be just like every other category, that you vote from that pile as well. So thoughts on that? I mean, the way it works is it's 15 to 17-year-olds can run, and then when they become 18, they can vote until the end of their term. And then they're done. Or they could be reelected in the process.
I don't know. Because they're such a special category, they're under 18 and they don't vote, I kind of just think that particular category ought to be voted on by their peers that are in that age group, and their peers are also not going to be voting the other 2 ballots because they're not 18. So I really think
I'm going to tell you. I talked
Yeah.
to Eric about this, but I have to bring it up. Sorry, I can't keep my mouth shut. My question is: you have a youth seat on this board because throughout some answers, I still put the floor.
It's sort of to bring somebody on like an apprentice to kind of see what it's all about, and
To give
it's a
the
good
children
introduction for
opportunity to participate in their governance,
Right.
and
Indoctrination program.
and to create more activity for the youth in the community, or more.
and sometimes
enthusiasm, or
the
what?
youth
Okay.
brings us people to help out or for events we
Okay.
have and stuff like that.
Okay, so if that is the goal, I personally would like to see every youth that wants to participate in the Studio City Neighborhood Council, who lives the road, whatever, goes to school in jurisdiction, is automatically appointed to a committee of youth, and that committee, once every quarter, elects a representative to sit on the board. And they don't have voting power, but they participate. And then they can come up with ideas of how they can make the community better and get more kids to participate and have their own agenda.
It sounds wonderful in theory, but we have found there's a lot of demands on kids' time that are in high school, and I just can't see ever getting that kind of involvement.
We could get 6.
We're lucky to get 2 people to run for that seat.
Well, although service hours.
So service hours. So I just don't. I don't think it
Even
should,
with that.
I don't think it should be voting. It should be service hours. And the whole point of it is, I'm not on the board, but I participate. But either I get involved in a committee, and the whole, or I do my AV nerd thing. But they need to be exposed to the process. And I think in the past there was a youth member who was very involved. Epstein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, but then currently, not a cut at all, but Claire.
but came from a family that was
Right.
involved in the community.
Right, but we don't know what we're going to get. But I think it's great that Epstein, he's involved, he knows all the issues. Let him vote, okay? But I just think it should be more about, I want to learn about local government, and I want to, it's an opportunity to actually come up with an idea, present it to the board. The board then can vote on it. You don't have to vote. I got this idea. I need this amount of money, and why can't they present an idea to the community, to the board, to do something good for the community? They don't have to vote.
And they still have a resume builder.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah,
And
I
it's
would.
service hours.
I would say that any sort of direct interaction that the youth board or a youth committee would have on the board is much better than just kind of sitting there quietly on the board and watching it all play out. I think I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to
Yeah, I like that.
weigh it with the
So
rest of what I'm thinking.
I think we
but-
still need to elect a youth member and let that youth member is automatically that youth committee chair,
Committee
and they
chair.
find their members just like all our other chairs do. That's part of the job.
Yeah.
but you've just now disenfranchised any other kid that was running, right? That they were all competing for that one spot.
Well,
That's
they
the
could
problem.
all
But they can join the
they could
committee.
all run, and then they can all be part of the
But-
committee.
But in the same but opposite, everybody's on, and then within that group, same group of people that would be on the ballot, they then
Right.
elect one person to be the representative of that group, and maybe quarterly or semi-annually, or just so that more people have a rotation and more people get a resume builder, more people get the
Exposure.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it because they're
But
young and long.
despite
Right.
significant outreach over the 14 out of 15 years I remember, there's never an everybody for this seat. We've maybe ever had 2, and it's usually they run unopposed.
If you give it power, though, if you give the position some teeth with an actual committee behind it, you might get some more participation in it. Because right now, it's like, what are they running for? Ultimately,
Yeah,
You know?
come to our meetings.
come to our meetings and watch it happen.
Well, the committee would
Which
give
they
them
could do
more
anyway.
power.
What the youth committee?
Yeah.
If there is a.
Yeah.
Well, let me make the following proposal and try to move through the youth thing. I think these are good ideas, actually. I like the idea of, the youth member, once elected, having some responsibilities that would go on the operating procedures, which is at another
Yes.
stage. So we have time to talk about that and debate it. But the part that we should laser focus on now is, on the election day, there's a ballot. The ballot says resident, stakeholder, And does it say youth? I think it does. And I think that if you put your name in and let people know that you want to run, we'll make that part of our... I mean, this is what I'm saying because this is how it's been. And we elect a youth member, and the way that happens is the same, but all the voters check the box. Because we don't have enough young voters to be enough of a sample. Because most people who participate in our neighborhood council election are adults, in the past. So that's my proposal. And then in the operating procedures, we implement some of that good stuff, like, they can decide who's going to come to the meeting if they have a little committee. If we want to set up a little committee, that there are maybe we can build out the responsibility so that it's more meaningful and not just sitting there. Because I agree that getting engaged is what we're after. But please feel free to rip that down and say, no, it's much cooler to have it actually be 10-5, not 10-5, ooh, I forgot, and the youth. I mean, because that is a little rolls off the tongue a little less smoothly, but I don't know. Is it worth preserving?
Does it need to, if you have a kid that's like interested in this whole process,
Yeah.
whether or not they're elected or not, doesn't matter. It's more about what I find interesting is the idea of that there's actually we're setting aside this committee. We're going to build this committee, and you can go do what you want with it. Come up with an idea that's good for the community, and you want to champion. You can bring it to the board, and maybe get money and see it out. And that's a good resume builder to me.
Yeah,
you don't need to
I agree.
Voting thing, because every time I wasn't there one youth member that forgot to vote for themselves and they didn't get any
They
votes
became
or
18.
something?
Oh,
Or something?
I thought you meant vote at the meeting.
Because they usually get one vote themselves.
What would be a
I
great
didn't think
idea?
they'd be good.
A great idea would be, and I realize I'm I have 3 jokes that I tell over and over again, but this is not a joke. But if we, rather than elect a youth member, we had an essay contest about why you want to serve, that would be awesome. We would get, a bunch of resume-hungry people submitting their little essays about why they want to serve, and then we could, as a board, or the Gov't Affairs, or the other one, could read it and go, this is very clever. This kid has merit. And then that kid could serve, but then we would bring in the other kids too, maybe. If we got 6 essays. What's that?
It would need to be blind because
it
the
would have
thing
to.
I'm worried about too is that
A real judge, you mean.
Right now, there's no evidence I have to support this, but I would imagine that right now the youth that know that this board even exists are usually related to
They are.
or someone
You're totally
in some
right.
way. And then how does that person not just sail through the process? And
Right.
I would love to
Good point.
avoid that as much as possible.
Good point.
Not always so. There has been outreach to the local high schools before the elections.
Yeah, that's good.
So we've gotten some
More-
that
yeah,
weren't.
It's a great
I'm
point.
just saying with this essay contests specifically, doing it blind,
Yeah.
just taking the names off.
Right, but that's right. Oh, that's the way to do it. That's the easy
Yeah.
way to do it.
Yeah.
Good idea. And also making sure that the judges are not pulling for. You have to disclose if you know any of the kids. You shouldn't judge.
You should have to disclose it.
Yeah, you should
My
just.
God.
If you know any of the kids, you should say, "I'm not going to judge because it's not fair. I know that kid
Yes.
wrote that brilliant stuff I gave her about engagement."
Right,
sorry,
exactly.
sorry.
Yeah, that's the
Right,
son of
okay.
my dentist.
Just my father and my college essay. No, I wrote my own. Sort of. I had a professional. No, I didn't. Okay, so anyway, what can we say about the youth vote? I mean, I don't want
Well-
to bog down in it because it is a pit.
If we still have to move forward, I do think that there's something to be said for everybody votes on the youth. And teenagers, it becomes a popularity contest. And with adults voting, like I know exactly what I would have voted for. People that were, some kid at Notre Dame High School that was running, and I know him, and I'm like, oh, that's a good family, that's a good kid. He wants to go into law, or he wants to, you know what I mean?
Right.
And if I don't know, I won't vote for any of them.
Right.
If I don't know anything.
Can I give a counter to that?
Sure.
Just the main concern I have with adults voting for the kids, even though, again, it directly flies in the face of everything I believe in terms of voter enfranchisement. But it is that kind of like, oh, I know.
Very nice
if
family,
if
right.
you're a kid and you're like, we really want to get one of us on that board fighting for the issues that we care about, versus a bunch of adults and be like, yeah, like they're a good family. They live in this gigantic house. I know that they're going to protect homeowners' rights on the board. Moving forward, I'd rather have the voice of the voice of the machine there be the children of what they want and want to see for this community. rather than adults voting on it, just to have another kid who just happens to
Echo.
Right.
their-
echo what adults.
Well, that's interesting because I sort of feel like they can't vote. So what?
Right. I mean, my personal, I would want voting age lowered to 14 if we
Right.
could do it across the country. You know, so it's like I'd rather have the kids having. a voice.
I mean, if I'll speak personally for a minute, I think that it is not making a lot of sense to have us or anyone vote for a youth because this is not their environment, and so they have their own high school elections. But I do like the idea of them coming into what we're doing so they see how we fight and how we behave and how we run our meetings. And so that's why I like the idea of hearing their voices through what they say, and if we can go blind, and then dialing them in, not just the best essay, but anybody who wrote a bloody essay can come to one of our meetings and have a slice of pizza, and then they'll realize,
Make a
oh,
committee.
that was horrible.
I do love it.
What a bunch of jerks. Why would I ever want to do that ever again? And then they'll know, so that will be good. But they may say, oh, that was interesting. They actually had a conversation that was good, and they disagreed, but they didn't fight. I like this. This is good. But, but in the interest of, I mean, we're not racing to do anything that I have right in front of us beyond the next step, but what can we do that will make this, again, Barry points out that this is not going to be adopted by the local government immediately. We'll see, but I want at least to have a package that's clear so that they can say no to something that's coherent. So that's why I'm trying to tease through this, and our board is not disengaged. They've thought about this before. We know this has come up, it's a lightning rod because it's so absurd. Why is a 15-year-old in an election? So that gets half the room to go, what? So that's a great way to stall everything. So I don't want to do that. So in the interest of moving forward, I'm happy to leave it in its current iteration, 15 to 17, with a few clarifications, that when you're 18, you can vote until the end of that term. Now, that takes us to the subject of terms. So first of all, do we agree on that or no? Does anybody
You're
want to
saying
speak
table
up?
Well,
changing the youth vote.
I'm saying, how
Yeah,
would
yeah, is that
or
what you're
make
saying?
I'm saying table it for now, or make a proposal that makes sense, that will be approved and clear.
But we're changing it to a committee, and it's going to show up in the operating procedures.
Well, that's not changing the way we elect it. The only election change would be that everybody votes for it versus just the 5 kids who know about our election.
Well, or it's just not on the committee, or it's not elected.
Right.
It's not an elected
Or it's
seat.
not an elected seat. So if it's not an elected seat,
Yeah.
did people favor that? Do you want to try that? And say, look, we got rid of it. I mean, the poor kid's going to sit there and go, soon, can I finish who cares? I know. She's a nice kid, and it's not about her, obviously. She's doing a great job. It's just about, does it make any sense for us? So do you think we should try that? Do you think it will serve as a facilitator or a bogger downer? What do you think?
I'd leave it elected. I think it's kind of special for the kid to actually run for something and be elected. I think it gives it more, specialness about it for the kid that's doing it.
Yeah, I think that might be a second bite to the apple. I think maybe for now we just keep it where it is right now.
Okay.
We focus on the 10-5 and see what.
Okay, cool. So then let's do that. Do we want to at least make the change that it becomes voted on like everything else? Click one from each box? Or do you want to hold the line on that? Because this is just,
which thing?
for example, when we see the ballot, it's pick from the residents,
Yeah.
pick from the stakeholders, and then also pick a youth, just so we can get everybody through. Because we don't want to say, oh, you can't vote for a youth because you're not a young person, right?
I think, well, if we keep the way youth vote is right now, it would be that. So right now I would agree that maybe we just keep it, the adult voters cannot vote for youth. And then,
Okay,
later
so you
on,
are
we figure
taking
out
that
what to
position.
do
Okay.
with the youth position.
Maybe
I think
just
there's a
say
lot
we
of.
haven't addressed it. Maybe just say we
That's what I
haven't
mean.
addressed the
I
youth
see,
vote.
I
We're
see.
not
Good
addressing
idea.
it.
So leave it exactly
Leave
as
it
it is for
exactly the
now.
way it is right now. I think
That-
there's too many good ideas coming out of what youth could be, maybe.
Right,
and
right.
Then that might be a second bite.
And in the operating procedures, we could really have
Yeah.
more fun.
And it would be good to have the youth person at this meeting to discuss what they think.
Good point. Okay, so are we clear about, you're keeping some mental notes about what we're agreeing?
Got it all recorded.
Yeah, but I mean, just
Am I
in
the
terms of,
secretary?
yeah.
Jesus.
No, not the secretary, but you know what you're doing. So, okay, so I think we can agree on that. Now, let's talk about the, what changes we have made and what we like about it and what we don't. You started by pointing out that you were concerned. I'm looking at the second page now, which is our simplified version, which is the 10 and the 5. So I'm not sure I can say anything else about it because I've said it so many times. It's 10 residents who are registered voters and 5 stakeholders who could be from any category, including, and by the way, I mean right down to guy with hat by freeway. If he votes here, he could vote in the, or she, in the resident category. And if not, if they made an argument and filled out, they could theoretically be a stakeholder. But or a business owner, or an employee, or as I mentioned, a community grouper, or a kid who goes to school here. Yes.
I think that the powers that be would love that our criteria was to be a registered voter because that may increase voter registration for them.
Right. Point.
Good.
It's easy to get behind registering voters because, that's what we should all be doing. We want voters. So.
And that's also very easy for us to check, just going to lavote.net. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't even need to.
Barry, do you want to take a shot at it, or are you
I can
concerned?
see arguments for both sides. For the 10-5, but again, and I'm not a renter, but I'm just scared that we'd end up with we wouldn't end up with a 35-65 balance of renters to homeowners.
Right.
Not at first.
Well,
I think you'll get it the second time.
maybe. And again, I just want to point out that we don't have.
Well, if
we
renters
don't
feel
have,
slighted,
That's
they'll
what I mean.
turn out.
That's
We
what I
don't
mean.
have at the moment. We only have 3 renters on the entire board.
Well, we only have 4 homeowners, so it sort of reflects.
No. We have a dozen.
No,
renters.
we have 4 in the category.
No, but my point is that if I'm a renter, okay, and I live in Studio City, and I want to see what my options are. Oh, I have
I know.
10 possible.
But Richard
seats.
Niederberg, let's say, he is the organization seat,
Yeah.
and he genuinely speaks to that. The people that elected him. He
Right.
goes to organization meetings. He stays on top of that as best he can. He doesn't conduct himself at our board meetings necessarily as a homeowner.
Well, he doesn't have to. He's got 11 other people doing it.
Right, but I'm just saying
Neither is he obligated under the
we
current
only
bylaws.
have 4 homeowner seats and 3 renter seats.
Yeah.
So is your view that what we're doing is potentially expanding the amount of homeowner influence by creating seats that could be for, because the way
Well,
I do that math,
And to be
if it's set 4, let me finish. If it's 4 residents and 3 renters, that's 7. That means there's 3 seats left that you're assuming are going to go to the residents and not to the renters. Why?
to the homeowners, you mean?
To the homeowners and not the renters. Yeah.
So looking at the old makeup, and if I
Sure.
just how I fit into Studio City, I'm a homeowner. Next one is a renter. I rent a house
That's right.
in Studio City. I own a business in Studio City. I am an employee of my own business in
Right.
Studio City, and I belong to a service organization.
All right, you're out, sir.
So
So
when
I
you
could
went
stack-
to vote, you would get all
trying to
the
stack the
ballots.
ballot.
I could stack the ballot box. The
And you
new
could
way-
vote 5 times.
The new way, I
Not really, because you'd still only be voting for each group
Oh, wait.
once.
You only get one ballot, though.
Yeah.
You only get
You-
one ballot.
One ballot
Currently,
for each
you can
category.
vote for every
No, no.
category?
Yes, he can vote for every category.
Yeah.
And this
So
is
that-
why
so
this is where the
like,
craziness
for me,
begins.
I would have 1 vote.
No, you'd have
Yes.
more than one.
I'd have 1.
No, you'd
I'm a
vote-
residential renter.
But you're also
I don't work here.
no, but you're a community. You would say I'm a member of the homeless committee, so I'm in a community group.
Okay.
Well, by
But
being on the
before I
board,
was.
you'd get to vote the organization
See, this
ballot.
is why we're fixing it
I'm
because
saying,
it's
but
a
That's the
crazy.
problem.
Right.
This
Yes,
is the problem.
that's
But
the problem.
before I joined the board, I wasn't on that committee, obviously. So Peter Cole would get 5 votes and I'd get 1.
That's the way it should be, but
But no,
I'm willing to look at a new way.
but he's just voting for more categories.
But
he's
we-
got
But
more
he's not
representation on the
voting.
board.
He's not voting. It's not like
But
he
I
can,
can't vote in
But
every
it's
single
not
one of
like
those
he's getting
categories.
3 votes for for homeowners.
No, he gets a vote here, a vote here, a vote
For
here.
each
He gets to
category.
He
vote
gets
for.
more representation on the
He
board.
gets to vote for 5
Yeah.
different candidates.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah.
I would get to vote for 1 candidate.
Correct.
And I'm a
Right.
resident of Studio City, a stakeholder of Studio City, just as much as anyone else
That's
who
right.
lives or has involvement here.
You step in
I
the
didn't know.
poop in
I thought
Studio
you.
City, right.
I thought you would go to the ballot. You know, like I would like to vote in this category, and that is where your voting ends. You get to
You
choose
check off the ones you qualify
No,
for.
one.
What
You should.
No, I'm saying when
Yeah.
you in the past you'd have a sheet
Yeah.
that you'd fill out your name and stuff, and then you check off the categories that you qualified to
You
vote
should have
for.
to be forced to choose
And-
one category that you decide to
Yeah.
vote in.
Well, and it's actually worse than that, because if I don't own a business,
Yeah.
maybe I did, I don't remember. But if I don't own a business, but I go to all the businesses,
Yeah.
I can't vote for the business owner that I really, really like more than other ones,
Right.
because I don't qualify for the category.
Right. So, but rather than tearing down what we've had, because I think it's great to do that, let's build up what we are trying to do.
I wasn't aware of that.
So
that
it's-
makes it,
believe me,
there's
it,
urgency.
and the extremely worrisome nature of that, when on the day of voting, the ballots are being determined by a group who you're not clear who that group is, but they look like those people who are with the others. You know, it's very unsettling. It should be
Yes.
very clear, and it should be very. You should not have the feeling that there's any way to
same ballot
vote
for
more than
everybody.
once. And
Yeah.
just to be clear, as you point out, we all did. We all voted in the categories where we were eligible to vote, because that's what. Why wouldn't you? You know, if you knew. But again, we're trying to make it.
And
So
it's also not, it's not a fair assumption, just because you're a homeowner, you wouldn't vote to be represented by somebody who's a renter. I'll vote for you.
right.
So, I mean,
No, and
you're involved.
Which I like-
I wouldn't
yeah.
vote for, I vote for people that are involved in this organization.
And that's
That's
an argument
right.
for opening it up.
Yeah.
And also, I think, you know, one of the things that I like
But
about
you're in the know.
But we need to get more people in the know.
we do, but just let's take a minute and imagine what it's like on voting day. So one of our volunteers, Jeff Carter, drew this up, and what it is it says Studio City official ballot, and it says I'm who I am, and he asks people to put the first two numbers of their residence address and the first letter of their name or something, which the reason why is because that keeps it anonymous in a way, even though there's a signature, if we have to do any looking at it for making sure things are kosher. So I think that's the reasoning. The second page you sign as a yes, I am who I am. Okay? And then the ballot itself looks like this. On one side you have residents, on the other side you have stakeholders, and below you have youth. So what we just talked about was voting in different categories. I do not think that residents should only vote in the resident category. I think that all stakeholders, that includes non-residents, non-registered voters, and registered voters in our district, should vote in each grouping, like Superior Court Justice, Governor, and Controller. You know, the three that you pick, 1 or 10 or 5 or as many as you, we can talk about that in 1 second, from each of the groups. Now, that may be, maybe not the youth booth. Maybe if you're a youth person, you can only vote on the bottom, if what we're saying. Or maybe this is simply breaking with 265 years of tradition. I don't know. But what do people say?
I
Brian?
have two questions on
Sure.
stakeholders. Understanding that there's a way to verify people who live in the town borders, how do you make sure that people are actually stakeholders? Or is that a lot of
Affirmation is the word that has been bandied about, and Barry will confirm, correct me if I'm wrong, Studio City has been an affirmation neighborhood council. That means that if you say it, and
But
it's
now
more than
you'd
say
be
it,
swearing to it.
now you'd be saying
Is
to
there
it
anything
under the threat of
Yeah.
kind of perjury. So I think people will agree, and most of all, so go on. But
Is there anything that would prevent an organization of another town to pick a beef with one of the board members or a candidate for the ballot, organize a bunch of people to vote as stakeholders to vote that person out?
no, of course not, because
Not
in politics,
from outside of
yeah.
Studio City.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And we can make a list of some other nefarious.
I'm just trying to
plans
point
as
out
well. No,
where the extremes are.
it could happen. It could happen, and
Not
I thought it would.
likely, but that's
Why is it not likely?
No, I think it has happened, actually.
has it happened?
In the history of time, it has happened. There was one case
I know
where
of
there
one
was a
neighborhood council.
there was a coffee shop that's in Studio City, and it's alleged that a bunch of people came to vote saying that they had coffee at that coffee shop. And I don't disagree with that. I mean, if they want to
Yeah,
do
no,
that,
that's
if
fine.
they
I
can
just-
organize that many people to do it, it's very hard. But this is the 5 stakeholder category. Remember, we have
Yeah.
no stakeholders. We have only residents at the moment. So I'm not sure we're going to get any people because, frankly, I think there's a reason why you live where you vote. because that's where you live, and that's where most people care about their community more. But there are lots of active businesses around here, and there are lots of active kinds of community. So let's bring them in if they want to get, like, here's one. Let's say you say I'm a realtor, so I'm a stakeholder. I sold a house in Studio City. Go on. All right, fine. She's in. Then she says, big e-blast. Everybody, all my best friends in the real estate business, drop by Walter Reed at 3:00 on Thursday and pull the lever for me. Just say you sold a house in Studio City. If you can get a bunch of people during their workday to come out and vote for you, and they really sold houses in Studio City, do they have to prove it? I mean, maybe were they going to lie about that?
Well,
I mean, we could look at it. Yeah, but react.
The problem is that if it's not the realtor and their email list, it's the developer and their employee.
We faced that.
So,
Yeah.
We beat it back in a natural election. What happened was we were running, some of us, for office. It was complicated. We were fighting against a hotel. The hotel had a lot of employees. The hotel owner put the shuttle full of employees come to vote against us. So that was very powerful because it was close, but it didn't work.
But
so,
it was legal, right?
I think so.
And
I mean,
that's
we
the thing,
tried.
it's like,
I
do we have
questioned
What
it.
wasn't legal was the electioneering that was actually happening
Yeah.
by the handler of those employees.
Oh, so close to the polling place.
Against the building.
Yeah.
That one, again.
And then the other question I have about stakeholders are, can a stakeholder still be someone who lives within the Studio City lines?
Great question. I think yes. I mean, we can't. That to me, it would be very hard to restrict somebody from running from a stakeholder seat on the
If
basis
they
of the
work
fact
here
that they
or
live
something,
here.
yeah.
You could say, "Oh no, you have to run for that other
No,
seat,"
they
but
could
that
run-
just
they
doesn't
could
feel
run.
like what it
I was
is.
just saying, like, if the idea was to try to get more people who don't live in Studio City to be part of the board,
We could consider that rule. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to
I don't
hearing
care either
about.
way.
I don't like
It's
those
to
kinds
be
of things
addressed.
because that feels like what we were doing before, which was
Yes.
limiting and channeling the people into certain categories under the not. I don't think it's dishonest to
Better-
say
better
that
to
Niederberg
have
is
them.
only thinking about the clubs, but we're all thinking about whatever's before us.
No, I
not-
was just saying
yeah.
he goes out of his way
No.
to keep informed on it.
And wouldn't you say I go out of my way to defend I'm an employee contract? I mean, I do speak up for the
Yeah.
employees on the boulevard quite regularly.
But so right now, if stakeholders under this new proposal can live within you can have the exact same board that we have right now under these new proposed laws, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's
more
all
inclusive.
15,
It's not
all residents.
exclusionary, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is
They would
this
all
is
qualify for something.
yeah.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
in this new one, yeah. It's
but
like,
but react to the
everyone's
idea
a
of
stakeholder.
voting in 3 different categories because maybe someone wants to say no. Only residents who are registered voters. It's so much easier. Then they just vote for that column, and everybody else votes for the other side, and the residents.
I think at this point, we have a separate ballot for the student and a separate ballot for the adults.
Nice, big and little.
Just at this point, until we've addressed the youth vote further down the line.
I agree with that.
And it's unanimous. Okay. Now, let's take a moment to talk about how we want to treat people when they come in the door. I mean, I like the idea that we give them this, but I got to be honest, it's a little bit of a turnoff in terms of the legalistic components to it. So it's not inviting. Like, do I have to read this? So
Yeah, but once they're in the building there to vote, they're not going to turn around and leave because they don't like this.
Yeah.
no, and we
They're
can
gonna
post this.
sign
We
it
can
and
post
vote.
this, right? But let's react. But we can also thin this back. It doesn't have to be in all caps, which makes it seem like you're yelling. And but it could be.
And Jeff could
And maybe
probably
some of the legalese could be
slim it down a
He
little
could.
and still cap
He's very
it.
open, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate him taking the time because it's hard to think of these things. Yes.
I would like, because we're talking now, this is not candidates, this is voters.
Okay. We're going to pause briefly to say goodbye.
So
Thank you.
sorry, I
no.
didn't mean to interrupt. I walked here and I had to.
Oh, we very much appreciate your
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Yeah, I
and
really
why not
enjoyed it.
come to the board
I
meeting
shall
on the
for
19th?
Sure. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll make
Great.
an effort of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you.
I would, we should have invited her to be on a committee. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Anybody who shows up
Did I?
is on a committee.
Well, I have her email because she wrote an email today saying what's going on.
Invite her
So
to
yeah, I will. I will.
So, when we vote at the county elections, there's in fine print at the very top, and you may not have noticed this, I don't know, you guys, inspectors,
On the card
on every
that you
single
punch?
signature page, on every single signature page, there's the, I swear that I really live here and I'm really a voter, whatever, that this is really me. And that's what you're signing, right? So I would like to see it mimic the county vote, where you come in and you sign a register.
Well, let's
And you put down
examine that for a minute,
an
because
address.
in Studio City, I live in what we call Sunny Slope in next door terms. So that's kind of like up the. So we all vote at the Japanese school. This time it used to be the Western shop, but everybody goes somewhere, and all those aggregate groups have a big book. So I'm worried that if we look at like the 27,000, what 27,000 looks
No,
like.
no. We
Oh.
wouldn't have a book like that.
Oh, okay.
We would just have one, probably five, or as many as you need to facilitate the movement. But of not handing everybody 2 sheets of paper, but having everybody come in and just sign in,
Mm-hmm.
and then print their address, and then pick up a ballot and go vote. Does that make sense?
So you would have a list of the voters,
We
people
won't
who
have-
voted.
No, we want to have a list because there's too many. How many people voted? 200? How many people live in Studio City?
No, I'm saying if they come in and sign up on the sheet, we'd know who voted, right?
Yes, we would have a list of who voted
That's what I
and
mean.
how they voted, yes.
That's what.
But not how they vote.
That's
Correct.
that's good. Yeah, we would have a list of the people who voted. We would have votes.
But you can do that with the
Can't
two
match them.
two pages. The one page is the one they've signed.
Yeah.
That's who voted, and the other page is their ballot.
Yeah, I think
This
that's
is just way more paperwork. That's
Right,
all.
but-
It's way more.
But I want to. Okay, yeah. I mean, I like the idea of a registration where you leave your name, but isn't there some rule that you're not supposed to have to do that at elections? Like you're not supposed to have to.
A California state law.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just.
You don't have to give ID.
Yeah, you don't show
No,
your
it's
ID.
not
Okay,
no ID.
but we're saying you don't have to give
you
ID.
have to
You just have
sign.
to print
you have
your.
to,
Yeah, you
you
just
have to
like-
sign your
Right.
name.
You still have to be a registered voter, so it's.
You have to
I
sign
just
your name.
know-
next
You
do have to sign your
address.
name
You
in,
sign your name next to your
in our
address.
elections.
And when I go to vote, and on
I
the
do.
table they've got the alphabet divided into 3
Yeah, makes
piles,
Yeah.
and I go to the pile for my last name. There's always that's the slowest point with them paging
Looking
through the
for
thing to
Johnson.
find your
We
name.
would not do that. We would have blank stations, and everybody would just come into any one of those stations and sign.
So
Frankly-
why not use the piece of paper then?
Because
No, but
when
we
you're
can't.
done,
But here's yeah.
you got to manage all those pieces of papers. Whereas this
You
is
just
much
have a
cleaner.
pile of who voted
No,
and a
but Barry,
pile of your
this is a
ballots.
great point. It's the same idea being converged into it. It's better to have one. I'll tell you what the sort of example is, because it's exactly the same. A petition is you print your name, address where you vote, sign. So people will do that. We know
Yeah.
people will do it. They have to do it. That's what So that one after the other absolutely makes
That
sense.
doesn't
Those
have to be
sheets-
looked up.
doesn't have
Yeah.
to be looked up.
Right.
We just but if we wanted to look it up, we could send it to the clerk who would. That's what they do.
Right.
And they would very quickly check everything, and that would be done. So they would
Yeah.
say, "Oh, we got a problem. You have 25 voters who didn't scan as registered voters."
Yeah.
Which case we'd go.
It can be audited. That's the
Right.
important thing. But it's like you get away from the legal problem of having any sort of ID on the ballot itself.
Right, but if the problem with that is that if we don't correspond, like he's suggesting, here's his ballot, here's his paperwork. When we find out that from the paperwork that some of these people were not registered, we can't go back and pull out their votes for a recount.
Nope.
Right.
But you can clean
But
it
he
for
set
the
that
next
up.
time.
Yes.
Yeah,
But you can't do
can-
that now.
You can't do it now.
You can't, and you shouldn't be
Not
able
now,
to
but
do
we
that.
should be able to do that.
No, you
now.
should not ever be able
No.
to do that. That's the whole point. It should be anonymous.
But isn't that why he was doing the thing that made ever wonder why we would have it be that on the ballot, the one that the ballot as opposed to the voter roll, it would say just the first letter and the address number, so that it wouldn't be scannable unless you did the authorized into this stuff, which has the, and then you could say, oh, okay, so this person lied. Which again, there's no remedy other than to recount and throw out some of the votes. And if it's close, you would want to do
You
that.
couldn't do that because you wouldn't know how that person voted. You wouldn't know what
No,
to
we
throw
would
out.
be able
But
to.
that is the inherent flaw that we currently have across the country, that's really, you can't fix it without tying someone's identity to their vote. And that is a bigger problem than the 1 or 2 votes that might be fraudulent. You know,
Right.
It is revealing that
It,
information.
it's actually, there is a way to solve it. Each of the, I mean, countywide, they all have numbers. Every ballot has a number, and you can put the number of the ballot on next to
Let's
their
do
name.
that. Let's do that.
But
But
they
that
don't have
still
either,
lets
though.
somebody identify by name how that person voted.
well, by number.
But even
But not even, because like when I go, like for this last midterm election, you know, I signed the book, I was handed the ballot. That ballot is in no way connected to the signature I just did, right? I take the receipt, but I hold that number.
Right.
I hold the number, the machine holds the number.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's nothing linking those 2 pieces of information
Right.
to my identity, unless I volunteer it. And that's like, just like ethics in elections.
But they don't do that, by the way.
But they don't do what?
You can't. They don't track those.
Sure, no, but
They
that's
throw
what I
them
mean.
away.
No, that's what I mean. Though.
Yeah.
But like, if there is
Yeah.
like a couple, they're trying to find the ID of like, oh, this ballot's completely wrong, and if I did it, they'll never be able to find me, you know, for that. And that's how it should be. I mean, that's the
I
thing.
know,
It's like
I know.
if it is open to abuse, we don't have that abuse, but the anonymity of it is more important.
So the security
Yeah.
would come in the step before, the step that we don't have right now in LA County, which is show your ID, show your driver's license. You see Studio City, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I forgot my driver's license. That's all right. What's your name? What's your address?
Yeah.
Put it into lavote.net. Oh, it pops up, no problem. Oh, I just moved. I'm not sure it's there. All right. Do you have a witness?
Yeah. Do you have a piece of mail? Like
Or-
you can bring a piece of mail to a ballot.
Or a utility bill or a witness?
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's a witness.
I mean, I feel like almost nobody should be rejected at the door for voting in a Studio City Neighborhood Council election. But again,
unless
you know,
we see a bus coming in with,
well, even there, we couldn't reject them.
But you're saying
They
they've
were
got to be a
qualified.
registered voter, aren't you, for
No,
the
no.
10?
No,
No?
I'm not. We were interviewing. I'm saying the reason why this is radical and revolutionary is I'm saying, in the interest of getting people into the process, we should have both groups or all 3 groups vote, except for the youth. You know, just vote
For
They
everything.
Yeah, for everything. So that if I'm Guy in Hat near Freeway, I can vote for the residents, of course, because those are the people who I like to knock on their window when they come up to the freeway and get a, you know.
I think looking at my short term with the neighborhood council, what I see the problem is this is great, open it up, and there's going to be problems, but to fix it, you have to go, it's the next step. It's going into taking away the president's power. So you can't have one person just take hold of a neighborhood council and wrestle it into inaction or a certain direction that.
That's
you
in
know,
That's
here,
a good
by the way.
point, yeah.
so-
That's in there.
Okay.
And you just don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
No, but I think that that's your point. Your point is that there's other things in the bylaws that will
That need to be adjusted or.
could be adjusted. Yeah.
I don't know Robert's Rules of Order, but yeah, it's just from what I've seen, we've been just stonewalled in certain cases
Yeah.
into inaction. And great, let people get in. If they get in through a method that maybe isn't perfect, there should be another remedy at another stage.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to hijack the plane, if they can fly, we're welcome to have them. But you know, I don't know that the current system could not be improved. So I think we're in that zone. So the question is there a volunteer to? I mean, how should we handle this, or should we just leave this be something that happens at another stage?
The ballot design.
Yeah, the ballot design.
Maybe ask Jeff if
He's
since he
willing
did
to-
it, if he can
to take-
streamline
yes,
it.
Jeff.
Jeff is Jeff Carter is the
Former
guy from-
board member,
He was
and
at the
he's
open
been on
forum.
lots of committees.
He tells stories about historical aspects as well as he's a very knowledgeable lawyer. You remember him?
No. What night was it?
He's on the GAC
He came to
committee.
both. Yeah,
Well, I
first
saw
night. Yeah, older guy from he's a
From
New
an
York
audio
lawyer. He's
standpoint,
half-
he's the only one who didn't stand up and use the microphone.
Yeah, now you'll remember.
I know.
Yeah.
My love for
That works.
precision is
Exactly.
clicking in. There is an organization, I believe it's called the Institute for Civic Design.
Yeah.
And they've been very active. I mean, they've been active forever, ever since I think they were founded right after the 2000 election recount in Florida. They've been especially active right now after the midterm elections of what happened in Broward County, Florida. And they're all about this kind of stuff. And they have guidelines about how to not have, for instance, for the audio, the youth member vote shoved into the corner, which is something that they think happened in the Broward County Senate, where
Gotcha, where
one of the
people
ballots
didn't
actually
know,
shoves below the instructions of the ballot, and it's all about trying
Fairness.
it's designing in a way that's fair and doesn't disenfranchise people in the booth itself. So I can start doing some digging
Great.
there.
Yeah. I mean,
They're smarter than I
let
am.
me talk about the time frame. That would
Yeah.
be great. And I will give Jeff the general. First of all, do we want to imagine creating one master list, pages and pages of voters who have told us and signed something saying they're who they are, and just have a bunch of ballots that we can't tie to, so we can't really do a recount, so that
You can
know.
recount the ballots if you think they're miscounted.
Yes.
But you can't pull any ballots.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. So I mean,
And it
does
just, at
that feel
point,
right
it's
to you?
just like if there are more fraudulent ballots that are higher than the difference of candidates, then you have a problem. But that's not,
Yeah, we could have a re-election if there's a real problem.
if
we
there's
feel
a
it's
real
really
problem,
tainted,
that's the
Yeah.
nuclear option. But yeah, other than that,
That
it's
won't
not
cost more than
it's not more of a
$3
problem than it is right now. I'm with you.
I think you make it as simple and easy as possible,
And safe.
Yeah.
and at the end of the night, you count how many signatures and you count how many ballots, and they should be the same, and then you're good.
People aren't going to vote if they are fearful that their voting record could get out and having that used against them in employment or social interactions or something.
Right.
That's yeah.
And the youth ballot and perjury signature pages just have to look different than the others, so we know it's just youth.
Yeah,
Since
They
we're
just have a
keep-
whole separate line.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how about
Yeah.
this as a go forward
Yeah.
on that? How about would you mind taking a quick? It's a one page. Good. So you'll mock up
And it'll
about.
it'll be
Yeah.
more than this, right? Because there's going to be more than how many is that? 15? It'll be more than 15.
Yeah, it could be
people
more.
running.
This is exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why
I take
envision.
this?
Yeah, take that if you like. And envision. Oh, you have one in your packet. But no, you don't. You don't. Take it. Good. So so good.
Do you not
so
have
that's.
a packet?
No.
No, take
I'm
it.
sorry.
Oh,
There's
here.
your packet.
Here.
Great.
Is this the whole thing?
That's the
That's the whole
nice,
thing.
thank you.
And the last 5 pages of which are a summary of our current bylaws with things moved into the operating procedures that we could discuss at another time. But for now, that's just we're getting there. But let's
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, of
One of the
course.
things you need to do is you need to rotate every the order of the names where they appear on the ballot, right?
Oh, for every ballot, or maybe have like 10.
Something like that.
Okay.
It depends how many
I even
ballots.
said that, and they were doing it for a while with our board when they would take roll call votes. I said, you can't start with A every time.
No, that's a good point.
Because people down the road will vote differently based on how many people voted a certain way.
But you need to make it consistent. Isbicki needs to be first,
Okay.
because he'll keep changing his vote.
But they were rotating. I don't know. They've sort of gotten away from
you
it
don't
again.
want Mr. Zemeckis to get screwed every time.
Yeah. So, just in a perfect world, what would we package together to show our board? This is what we were thinking as the better way to go. Here is an example of what the ballot would look like. Here is how the bylaws would be different, if at all.
Just the language in the bylaws
Under
referencing
elections.
elections.
Right. That's one section. You know the section, right, Barry? Section number 9. There was one bit of language in there. Do you have it handy?
It's right here.
Where they talk about, here, go to the section about what you have to disclose.
In the bylaws?
I think it's in our bylaws.
In the current bylaws,
In the
right?
current bylaws.
All right.
Section 9, right? Or 10.
Article, are you saying
Article, yeah. It's not in there.
Elections.
Yeah.
It says all stakeholders are eligible to vote for all
Right.
seats.
So this is what that's not the original, that's what we...
Right.
Oh, I see.
So, here.
So what does the original look like, just for
Well,
the purposes of...
article, it's mostly,
Okay.
it's this much. This is the article. You want me to read some of these? or
Yeah,
do you
just
wanna-
read
or
it
do you
so
wanna
that we're
just-
clear on it. Read
Why
here.
don't-
All right, I'll take a look at it.
do you want to just-
Let me just see. Okay, yeah, so it says it will be conducted pursuant to the city ordinances, the number of board seats, eligibility requirements for stakeholders may vote for the board, noted in attachment B. So it points to the
Yeah.
attachment B, so we'll need a revised attachment B. Each stakeholder is at least 18, shall be entitled to one vote for each open board seat in each category for which the stakeholder is a member. Each stakeholder, age 15 through 17, as of the date of election, may vote for the youth member seat. Okay.
Now, every student has a student ID, so that language probably should say anybody who's student in the high school who can show student ID. I mean,
But if they don't, who cares?
no, but
Do we have homeschool?
I mean, we might, I'm just saying, let's not add
Okay.
documentation requirements we can avoid, even though I think you're probably right, we can ask for that, but and most will have it, but if they don't, they're still a student. I mean,
And I don't know that you could prosecute somebody for swearing to something if they're under 18.
You can't.
You can?
No.
Or can't?
No, but you can just hope that they.
Could you
Are scared by
prosecute
it.
their parent?
Well, since the turnout is typically one.
Yeah, it's. I don't think we have to
and
worry
if
about
we could get
fraud.
two, even if it's
Yeah.
fraud, go for
I
it.
wouldn't vote
yeah.
either, considering it's the amount of power.
Yeah.
It is. That's,
Okay, so is this your recollection? It's pretty light, the whole, there's not much there.
what article?
Ours is better, yeah.
Is this the old one? I have the old one.
Yeah,
Election. Yeah, it's one page.
it's pretty light.
can
Now,
we do it the same date? Is it 2015, September 1?
What's that, sorry?
Yeah.
Are you September 1, 2015?
September 1. Yeah. 2015. It's. I just pulled it up from the
Yeah,
website.
I just didn't know. If
so I guess in the version that Nancy took a look at, which is here, it's Article 9 in ours, it says, all stakeholders are eligible to vote for all seats. That's the first sentence. Candidates. There shall be 15 seats on the Studio City Neighborhood Council. These seats shall be allocated as follows. 10 seats shall be eligible to registered voters within Studio City boundary. Each seat serves no more than a 4-year term. Any reaction to that?
Did you like how I did that?
I thought it was 2.
Well, I just modified here. Again, the idea is to make the bylaws as lenient as possible, that adhere to what Dunn wants as much as possible, so that the operating procedures can be tweaked and maneuvered as wanted in this Studio City.
Right.
100%.
5 of 5, last page.
So they say no more than 4 years. So
I see. Yeah, I agree with this. I love it.
okay.
Well, the no more than 4 years just covers if Dunn doesn't have an election in
Exactly.
2, and they've done that more than once.
Good point.
Once
he's agreeing with
once
you,
it
though.
was
Yeah.
over.
He's saying that it's a good
Once
idea.
it was
Right.
over 3 years, and this time it's
Right.
like 3. So
So, you understand that?
I
Put that in
understand
your
making the
words so that we-
bylaws
yeah,
as loose as humanly possible to have everything in the operating procedure so we could not fall into this ridiculous moratorium, which
Yes.
again, I can find no record of it
Yeah.
currently being enforced.
of what?
A bylaws moratorium right now. There isn't one.
Yeah, there's also a
As far
good
as I can tell.
argument.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't
Dunn
wanna
sent
devolve.
it out that they were not doing any
Do you
bylaws
have that?
changes. Well, John Walker told me about
Yeah, but
it.
John
so-
Walker is the Studio City Business Improvement District guy. I
Right.
mean, he
No,
was
but I mean,
president
Point is
3 years
that
ago.
he
in a-
follows this stuff
No, I
and
know.
remembers
Good. Right.
getting
We
the
follow his
email.
work, too,
I
yeah.
spent several hours today. There is nothing in any of the meetings for Dunn that say that there is a current bylaws moratorium. There is no alert on the website. There is no policy on the Dunn website that even alludes to a bylaw moratorium being in effect right now. So I can't find anything.
I will say this. I will say
Take it
this.
to the city council if you have to.
Well, right, and I think that what's at issue here, we can, a moratorium means, for those who don't know, you can't do it. We got that.
Do you want to
But
write to Gracie Lou? And
Yeah,
ask
that's
her
what I was gonna
where-
say.
Because
Where
where
does
is
it
it?
say
Because
that?
right now it just
Right.
seems like a lot of people are assuming there is one.
Have
and
you
there
talked to
isn't,
her
as far as I can
before?
tell.
Would she take your call?
yeah, of course. And
Why don't
she-
you call her and ask?
Okay, well, first of all, I believe, even though Brian may be right that there's no good official record of it, I believe that they believe that there's a moratorium on bylaws.
Right.
So there's a dispute.
And
So
even
I can't resolve it now because I can't
even if
see
they
everything.
haven't put it out, if you're right, even if they could still
Yeah.
say today we're not doing it before the election.
Or
They
could
have that
say,
right.
and they
There's
also have
nothing,
the power to say,
Yeah.
we're going to do it.
Yeah.
That's the
Because
thing.
it's a settlement that we want to do.
But
because
that's why
these
I
people
say
have tried for 3
you
years.
should call her.
Well, again, I'm going to. Oh
Yeah.
no, let me be clear. There's no way that we are going to be able to move forward without their being aware of it, because we're very transparent. They know what we're doing now because I've agendized it all, and they know. So they said to me when I asked about it, feel free to do whatever you want, but until we turn the key on the cabinet and rewire your bylaws so that they're rewired, there's nothing that, So that's
Right,
the point.
they're
that's
not
strong.
stopping
But
any
the only
the
thing
committee
is that
from
they can
doing
go over
anything.
there and open the key and do that whenever they want. And the good time to do it might be in advance of the opening the election, because if you open a kettle of confusion versus a kettle of, oh, this is better and clear, they may benefit because they ultimately we're all trying to do a good job,
But
including
see,
the clerk,
that's
including
where
Gracie.
they're coming from differently,
I get
and
it.
they're thinking
I know.
they're not going to do this because it looks like you're trying to change something right before an election.
But there's a long history of our efforts to be more open and inclusive, not the opposite, which is what we're trying to change. So maybe they want to take the position that we're going to keep these guys under the, they may try to keep the lid on it. Again, what I like about it is at least we have articulated prior to the beginning of the race, this would be better. If they want to say, we're not going to do anything, so sorry, so be it.
Well,
but I don't want to stop short of finishing the task. If
That's
we can.
why I say you should talk to Gracie,
I'm
because
going to.
that
No.
knowing
It's mandatory. It's
knowing
mandatory.
that
Right.
gives you our timeline.
But I'll give you
if
one-
she says she'll do it, you might proceed faster. If she says not, there's no great rush.
No, there is a great rush. There's a great rush because we've been sitting here for 3 years trying to accomplish this, even though we have not sat down to meet on it until quite recently.
I did.
No, I don't want to minimize
Years
everybody.
ago.
No, and
No,
people
I'm in the
tried.
Bylaws
Right,
committee.
right. No,
I've
I know
been-
you
I've been
met
doing
several
this.
times. She's been working on this for years. With Richard and others. This is a group effort. So my goal, and I think it's a worthy one, is to bring forward something articulate that's decent, that's better, because it's very easy to leave us in a pile of confusion, and then we'll all suffer and nobody will participate, and it'll maybe some of the old timers will come back then, maybe not. They're all welcome back in our model. Everybody's welcome back. So I think we should push forward, even though I'm acknowledging that there might be a blockade. So that said, as we look at this, I was reading it. The 4-year term part has been explained, and we all agree that it's good to consider that, or because people are going to say, and one person already said, 4 years. I don't want to do that for 4 years. I'm not signing up for 4 years. I'm only going to do 2 years, 2-year term.
Well, then maybe it is a good idea to say it so they know what they're getting into, rather than thinking, oh, I'm signing up for 2 years, and then, like you guys,
You got sucked into 3.
Sucked into 3 without your being asked.
Right.
So my recommendation would be you keep the bylaws at 4, and you present this to the draft to the board and invite them to come to the next bylaws meeting, and there you discuss, and maybe we just keep the operating procedure exactly as it is current, and then discuss changes in the operating procedure where we just need 2/3 or whatever of the, I don't remember what the vote is here, 50.
So what would that do to the 4 year? Would it put 2 years back here or leave this 4?
No, the bylaws would be 4 because that's what the done. So
And
we
it
don't
says-
have to go back to done again.
And it says up
Yes.
to,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah,
Up
that's the thing.
to.
No more
Yeah.
than 4.
No more than.
Okay.
That we can be less.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I'm on board with
Yeah,
that. As long as that's a done guideline and we're not seeming like
Which
we're
I
reaching
just
for
saw
a
all that
particularly
stuff
long
today.
term.
They
Right.
recommend
The
keeping
only thing that
bylaws
fights
as
it is that I
possible.
will tell you, a lot of us are heading for the door. There's the old timers like you and perhaps me and others will stay, but a lot of our board is not planning on running again, or so they say. Because 2 years or 3 years is a lot. So I don't want to scare people off by the commitment. When you say
But that's-
it's a
but
4-year term.
That's a
Oh.
conversation that has way more people.
No, but there's one conversation to a person who's new, which is, hi, welcome to our council. Would you like to serve? You could become a candidate. How long do I run? What's the term for? 4 years.
Well, no, you're not saying 4
It
years.
could be up to 4 years.
But also when
bylaws aren't the rules. They're
Right.
just the up
They're
to.
just
okay,
the up
I'm
to.
on
But
board.
Mitch
Also-
Englander, he changed it so everyone knows they can bail whenever they want.
He's
but when you
trying
have
to provoke
a new
me.
candidate,
Right.
you don't go up to them and read them
There's something
30 pages of
suspicious
bylaws.
about
Right.
that.
That's
It's just-
right. That's right.
We're just keeping this loose, keeping all the real rules and operating
Good
procedures,
point,
so we
and
can
thank you for
alter them
reminding
at
me.
any
Right.
point we want.
Okay,
And
good.
Make it 5 pages.
Great,
of
I love
bylaws
it. I love
rather
it.
than
So the
just-
candidate
Exactly.
shall choose which seat he or she is applying
If there's a
for.
moratorium, then forget it. Like, we need to keep bylaws and lose it like a skeleton.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the idea.
It's ridiculous.
So the way we prove eligibility to be a candidate,
That got moved to the operation.
right? It's moved to the operating procedures, and we have a lot. There's a lot of ways to cut at it, but the beauty of it is that the lion's share of these folks are registered voters now, so that resolves it like that.
And it's 2 seconds to look up.
Correct. And then, okay, so those are then it says all election procedures, including that verification of eligibility of candidates and voters, and the election process shall be detailed in the procedures, operating procedures, vacancies. During the term, should any elected member no longer satisfy the requirements for eligibility to serve, so if they move, they shall be automatically removed from their seat. Now, that's in the bylaws, so I guess it makes sense. If a person just left, we could act on that. There's no requirement to act on that.
No, there is. It's shall. They're no longer in that seat. Now,
Okay,
there's no
so
requirement to
immediately.
fill it.
Okay.
There's no requirement, but if they move,
Okay,
they can.
so that's clean, and that works for Mr. Carroll.
That works for me, yeah.
Okay. And Peter?
Well, sorry, have it go ahead first.
Yeah. You know, do you know what I'm talking about or not
Yeah,
exactly?
I'm looking at.
It's last page of the document itself, page 5 of 5, the very last page.
God, goodness. Well, it was more about the makeup of the seats. So if you,
Also, 505.
you're still a stakeholder because you go to the coffee shop, but you move, does it matter? You have a board seat, you got on to.
Well, the candidate chooses which seat to run in.
No,
Resident
So
or-
as long as you
he
can
makes
still-
a good
As
point,
long as you
though.
keep
Yeah,
getting
no,
coffee in Studio
eligibility.
City, if you're a
Right.
stakeholder, you still are eligible.
And that's the way it is
Can
now,
you
though,
keep
with
the seat?
stakeholder.
The bigger thing here is that it's not for most people. It's for the one that everybody knows. They sold their house. They're
Yep.
moving up to Camarillo,
Right. So that's why I was saying.
and it's automatic.
But that's why I was saying it's not a requirement. Because, for example, just play it out. Patrice Berlin, let's say that she got on the board again, but then they moved to Monterey, but she came back here because she kept her home. Oh, well, then she would still qualify. So you'd say she doesn't have to quit because she still kept her home. So I guess that's true. I'm just trying to think of.
If you move out of state,
I just don't want it to be a thing where I guess
I think
I'm fine
it
with
has to be
I'm fine
about
with it.
your
Yeah.
primary residence.
Yeah, I think so.
and that's the way it is currently
Right.
under the bylaw.
And besides, if you do, I mean, here would be one scenario. I'm a renter in Studio City, okay, serving on the board. I'm a great member of the board, Brian Carroll. But then they get a better opportunity in Sherman Oaks because it's twice the size and a little less money. We got to do it.
Mhm.
So they move to Sherman Oaks. Is he automatically defenestrated?
Depends on my seat.
Yeah, if he's
well, if you're a resident,
If I'm a
yes,
resident, then
yes,
it's
yes.
Automatic
removal.
And we've had people.
And then could we reappoint you as a? And by the way,
I could run again. Well, if there's a
An
stakeholder
open seat.
if there's an open stakeholder seat,
yeah,
I could.
Well,
right.
The
Okay, I got it. I'm
president-
following.
yeah.
So that all makes sense.
Because we have
Yeah.
had people that have resigned because they've moved out
Yeah.
of
Okay.
the
So
area.
fine. So I think you're right on it. It's just that I've never faced it. So
But not to clog up the works, but as long as I'm still involved in the neighborhood council,
yeah, then you would be qualified, right?
As
That's
a
fine.
state-
You would be a
Stakeholder.
stakeholder. Yeah.
but I'm a stakeholder because I still, if I'm doing work for the neighborhood council, I don't have to be in the state. For instance,
Yeah.
No, you
tonight,
don't.
you're going to take that, you're going to send that to me, I'm going to put a title on it. I could be on the moon, doesn't matter where
Yeah.
I am.
But you're not a board member.
But if I was a board
I
member,
see.
Well, here's what I would say. That's what I'm trying to protect. Is I don't
Be
want to.
stakeholder.
I don't want someone to automatically be
That's-
thrown out the window if they're contributing to our neighborhood
It
council.
cannot be an automatic process if there's any sort of ambiguity.
Right.
That's the thing. If the person who moves away is still arguing for a stakeholder status, if that's their seat, there needs to be some sort of governing board
Maybe.
that can approve or, right?
Well, the
Stakeholders
board could
so
just-
I mean, stakeholders.
The board could
that's
just
like,
vote on it.
that's
The board can
At
vote
the
on it.
Go buy
time.
a
Maybe
cup
that-
of coffee.
yeah.
We're done.
Right.
I mean, I think that's.
Yeah.
I don't think you. And by the way, if they want out, they're going to quit anyway. And if they can't make it, there's going to be attendance issues that are going to show up, and they're going to be out
Well,
anyway.
Right. No, this is specifically. I think it is a very specific case, but this is a person who might still want to keep their seat on the board and yet maybe live a state away. It's a very unusual situation that we want to account.
Yeah. So I think that is there language that would address it, or should we not bother? Because
it would need. I think any language would just be it would go to a vote of the board for
Right.
consideration.
Any dispute would be determined by a
That's
vote.
easier. No.
Yeah.
No.
During the term, should any elected member no longer satisfy the requirements for the eligibility to serve, they may be removed from their seat.
Right.
That's all.
I think that's what it is.
Pursuant
Because
to operating procedure.
No, just they may.
they may,
All
because
right.
therefore, if we feel that this is not working, sorry, you're out. They're out, right?
Yeah.
And may implies by a vote of the board, but it doesn't say that, and we should probably. Should it say that? or
It could
no?
be in the operating
It's
procedure.
in the
okay,
operating,
fine.
yeah.
That's what
All
I'm
right,
saying.
fair enough. Good. So I'm on board with that. So then finally, an
there's
elected
no
member
appeals
may
process on
resign.
it. Yeah.
This is outrageous. Shall resign. An elected
What does it
member
say?
Shall resign. It
If
says
what?
may. No, an elected member may resign.
It's a separate
And I'm
sentence.
joking
Yeah.
because it's a perfectly reasonable sentence. In other
Yeah.
words, you may resign from
I
your
see.
seat.
Yeah.
And then in the operating procedure,
It almost seems like it doesn't even need to be there
Right.
because the bylaw can say you can't resign, and what's going to stop someone from doing it?
Exactly. The love of community. Okay, finally, the president may appoint a stakeholder to serve on an empty seat until the term of the seat expires. Well, how about the board? May
Should I be saying chair instead of president? I get those are interchangeable.
I have the president with the approval of the board. The president shall appoint
Yeah.
with board approval.
That's how I was appointed.
yeah,
I like the idea of advising consent.
Yeah.
right. But Patrick was particularly open and let you have a beauty
Yeah, but
pageant.
we may get someone who's not.
No, but that's why I think it should be, if we're writing one of my peeves, and I've said this before, is even though we have a great president, all the presidents are great, I find too much power in the hands of one. I like what you said, that maybe the president can make a decision and then the board has to vote on. I
Right.
like board voting.
Right.
And lots of things are not that way in our bylaws.
Can I make a parliamentary point at this point? Because I think it's
Always. Sure.
important. So there's a couple of things in parliamentary procedure that are so important. And one of them is that every voice is heard and that the majority wins the action,
Mhm.
right? But every voice is heard. The other thing that's super important is that the person who's in charge, the chair, whoever of the committee or of the board, has total authority to move that organization in the direction in which they got elected. That's why they got elected to that role, to move it. And with that comes the power to appoint is a power to remove. But if the board no longer likes what the chairman is doing, the power to appoint is a power to remove. So how did they get elected? They can be removed. You can vote out whoever is current chair of your Studio City Neighborhood Council.
Right.
At
You
any
mean
time.
Examine
you mean
that.
board member?
I'm talking about
Yeah, she
the
means board
position
member.
of
Right. It's the president, but it's
thank you, President. I
The-
didn't know.
the officers.
The officers.
Yeah.
They can be moved out. But once you elect that guy, you need to let her do whatever it is that you give them the authority to do, and they get to appoint chairmen and appoint committees and move things, because that's how you get it done. So I'm done.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That's a good speech. So how can you make clear that it's at the pleasure of the board? One of the defects in our
Sorry,
system, in my opinion, is that if you don't like, as an example, what a president is doing, and the board intends to call a vote on that, there's a procedure that requires 3 signatures from board members to get a circulated petition to see if people will meet against the chairman's.
That's all. Who can call a meeting is all covered in here.
Yeah.
Who can call a meeting, and anybody can call a meeting as long as there's enough people
Right,
who want to.
but in
have a meeting.
our, I don't know if those are Robert rules or
That's-
rules that we've adopted, but the having to have 3 signatures on the thing was a sticking point when there was some talk about removing the president. People were worried that if it didn't work, there would be retaliatory action. So they didn't want to be, even though they said, I want the president to be removed, they said, but I don't want to be one of the first people to sign.
That's
And I
ridiculous.
said, let me take care of that. And I signed. I said,
Yeah.
look, there, I signed, now sign. And then Craig Radow signed, and then we pushed it around the room, and there was no room. There was, this was done appropriately. We were circulating. But nobody wanted to do it because they were worried that we may not have, so anyway, maybe that's the way it's set up.
Because
That
that's
it shouldn't
bad.
be, well, but it shouldn't be so
Council
easy to
has so
remove the
much power
president.
and your vote really
It shouldn't be too easy, but it should be.
It shouldn't be so easy to
If they're
remove the
not
president.
willing to sign the piece of paper, then they don't honestly want that vote.
I know, but you're confusing integrity with the way people roll.
Well,
but I
they should
appreciate
want
that.
it.
No, and I like that you
Why I'm
react that
voting
way.
for you.
No, it was a great frustration for some of us, but
Yeah, well,
anyway.
cowards.
Can I
you
tell
address
there's,
that?
There's
Yeah.
also one thing that's really important too, and this might not be addressing this or not, but that's important. Is with that chair or that president who has all that authority and gets to appoint people and make things happen and make things move. That president is also supposed to be silent on issues. Silent, right? The president never votes unless his vote changes the outcome.
Interesting.
The president never should be bringing a motion.
Is that in rules of the Roberts?
Yeah.
Or
I love
Rules of
that.
orders.
You could see how that makes sense too.
Yeah.
It's like it's true. Activist guys like me should shut up when they run their meetings. I mean, in a way.
In a way.
Yeah.
Well,
In a way,
Denise
because
tended to
because
do
you can-
that.
you
She
can
wouldn't vote.
intimidate
Right.
voices.
Yes.
And your job is to make sure
Yeah.
every voice is heard
Right.
and every voice is welcome and every side of every argument has been heard.
See, I think that's important for any chair to play that role of listening to everybody. That's the most important thing. So, and then there's the question of should you share your own view if you're the running of the meeting? You should minimize it. I think that we agree, but I don't think you have to remain silent.
No,
They
never.
certainly don't. In some
Never.
models,
And-
they become great leaders.
And if you have a particular issue that you're passionate about, you temporarily step down as chair for that one motion, for that single motion. You step down and you let somebody else run the motion.
No, it sounds.
So
That's why it's always good to have a good.
There's a way to
co-chair.
do both.
Okay, well that's interesting. So let's see what we can do to move forward. I know we're all tired, but I want to make this. What other things are we not thinking of? I mean, I think we talked about the changes that would make sense to me on that. Right, you changed one of the shells to a. What did you change?
To a may.
Yeah, to a may. So again, thinking about. You made a point, which is we should circulate these bylaws to the board and have another meeting if we can. That's why I brought this calendar and see if they have any feelings about this initial process and the packet that's been cleaned up and pushing things into the operating procedures. We can write a short explanation of why we want to do that, which is so that we, as a board, can control changes that we need to make if we need to make them without having to go through the done chamber of horrors. So the question then becomes, today is December 9th, it's a Sunday. The meeting is on December 19th for the board. So if we wanted to hold one more little bylaws get together, circulate this, tomorrow, I could send out some stuff saying we had a meeting, here's the some bylaws, take a link to it so people can see the proposed changes, and then we could have a bylaws meeting and have people filter back their feedback, which could be, this is ridiculous, there's a moratorium, you're welcome to, people can say what they want, and then we could hold one more meeting, and then before, preferably Sunday of next week, which is when we have to agendize for the 19th. So it would be sometime this week we would come back, and Nancy would have a little time to poke at the operating procedure, see what, and then maybe make a motion to present it for a vote at the December meeting, which could be, called.
I think you should either talk to Gracie tomorrow or the city attorney that she tells you to talk to and find out if there's any possibility that this could happen before the election. And if it isn't, there's no rush.
Right, but the city works this
Specifically,
way.
where does it say that? Because what I
We wanna know
find
that.
dealing with Dunn, it's
Yeah.
a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I believe
But
either
Barry-
she can give you the answer or she can give you the city attorney that
But
absolutely will.
let's say she says we're not going to change the bylaws. Let's say she says that.
Right.
I still want to change the bylaws, and my neighborhood wants to change the bylaws.
I
because
get that.
It's crazy.
But I'm saying we don't need to do anything before the next board meeting,
But
if that's the case.
But I want my this again. You don't have to agree. You don't have to
trying, but you're trying to do this too quickly.
Fair enough.
When people, it's the holidays right
know.
now. People have stuff to do.
I know.
I have stuff I should have been doing tonight
I know.
that I'm not.
That's okay.
And I object to the rushing if we don't have to.
Okay, well,
All right?
I appreciate that. I will, as a accommodation to that concern, I will call Gracie tomorrow, and I will also speak with the clerk. In fact, the motion for GAC is to share this with them.
Right.
So I'm not going to let that go. I want to do that.
But I
want to
believe they'll
but I don't
give you
want
an
to
answer.
No, but here's the thing. I'm not seeking to be negated the voice that we have here in Studio City. What I want to do is raise the voice. They're going to say it doesn't fit with our time frame, Mr. Previn. You know, nice work, but we're just not.
But
if
that
they
doesn't
want-
mean we can't submit it. They just won't act on it till after the election.
Right.
And I get
but
that.
my whole
I'm
point
just
is-
saying
my whole
not this
point is-
month.
But if we vote in December 19th, if we do, let's say we do, and let's say it's not 100% perfect, but it's better, okay? But it's better. And there it is, and it's got the board stamp on it, but it's missing several things, as you know. It's missing the bonk stamp, and it's missing the clerk opening the cabinet. Well, so what? I mean, we can't control that. And my talking to her now, she can't evaluate what we did until we do it. And so the burden on you, which is real, and I want to make it very clear, which is why, you know, I don't want to require you to be here, but I want you to be here because you're valuable. We're going to meet one more time before the board meeting, if we can, to do any of the cleanup that we could possibly
But
do.
that's
I want
what
to
I'm saying.
share it with the board
Can be
as well.
in January if they tell you
But-
nothing's
but
going to happen.
Here's the thing.
May I,
Sure, absolutely.
may I step in for a second? So I have a question for you. Is it Barry?
Yeah.
Thank you. I know that you feel rushed. I feel that I've been laboring on this like a dead baby right now. Would you be okay if the bylaws just got down to 5 pages, whatever minimum required by Dunn on their bylaws, their requests, right? And I need to clean up a little bit on that because it's not as clean. And that everything else, nothing has changed. It's just all now moved into operating procedures. And everything that was in the bylaws is now in operating. But we haven't changed policy. We're going to have no discussions about if we're going to have a youth vote or not youth. It's all exactly the same. It's just moved to operations. Would you be okay with that being done before the 19th?
Only if they say they're going to entertain changes before May 16th. There is no point to rush. I can't tell you how busy I am between now and about December 30th. And I know other people are. Mm-hmm. And unless they're going to entertain a change before our election, there's no reason we need to rush this right now. There just isn't.
Okay, well, we disagree. So, but that's okay,
yeah.
though. It's okay. Because, well, first of all, what it comes down to is very specific. Because there's not that much time. It's not like we're articulating a long and drawn-out process, is the good news. Now, the bad news is there are some conflicts with people's time, mine included. But I think what we can do is be inclusive of your view. Well, first of all, you've had a lot of good input, and I'm glad you're here. And if we meet again, you will be provided a result of it if you can't make it. I want you to be here, but I'm offering. Again, I'm not requiring you to be here, and I won't hold it against you. And I don't feel like we're so far apart in terms of what we all think. So the only thing we disagree about is the timeline. And I admit that this is crazy, the timeline. I mean, I'm the first one to admit it. But the reason why it's crazy is because they're crazy. Okay, there should not be what amounts to a 2-year moratorium on our affecting this, because it's been the last year of our term before election for 2 years in a row. I don't want to argue or debate it. We're not having a
litigation. Will you let us know what you find out tomorrow?
Yeah, I will. But
Okay.
again, I want to be clear that though I'm not antagonistic with the city, I'm in opposition to their view that there should be any reason why we can't change this if we all agree and vote for a lot of reasons. So what I want to try to do is just get it better. Again, there's a very strong chance that you're completely right and that they slammed the door on our hand and say we're not doing it now, so you're going to vote the old way. In which case, that's what we'll do.
And I'm not saying wait till do it after May 16th. I'm just saying we could do it
But Barry,
this in January.
But here, the reason why we're here on a Sunday night in December, which is weird for all of us on the 9th, is because I want to be done with something better before they roll out their little train, which is a silly train of 30 days of waiting till they do something at the end of January. And then at the end of January, it's a weird thing where they're gathering their thoughts. But it's a lot more fun for them also to be thinking about promoting an election that's clear and inclusive and better than what we have now. So that's how I feel. But I don't want it to come between us. I mean, I know that you're making the case, and I do promise to speak to them and try. But for the record, and so the record is clear, I have spoken to them. I have implored them to release us from the craziness of not allowing to change. If we all vote on it, who are we protecting? We want the public to tell us what they think.
and did they give you an answer?
Historically, they have articulated but not written down, and it is not. I am looking for where it says there's actually a moratorium, because I think it's weird to have one. But it may say it somewhere, so I don't want to close that down. But they have said that we are not inclined to do this. Well, they've said that to me. I've said, well, can we change them so that they're better and will be better and easier and so on? They said, yeah, you can do that. So that's why we're not in. What I'm doing is calling them on their bluff a little bit, because I think that we're not so far off from something better, that if we slide it through and the board actually votes like a board and says, yeah, we want it to be better, because I remember what it was like 2 months before the election last time, and I was going, this is crazy, Can we change this? I mean, why is it that I can only vote for? I was trying to make sense of it as an outsider, and there was not. Nobody could. We were all collectively crazed. And Lisa Sarkin, who was the president at that time, because John had left, did a good job of holding the line, but there was no changing of anything, nothing, and we all suffered for it, including her. I mean, she lost her seat in the end because it was and that was, I'm talking about. So long story short is, we can only improve the situation. I value your input. I'm glad that you weighed in tonight. When can we meet? Is there a time when you can meet, if it's possible for you in the next week? Or is there no time for you? Or I should go around the room.
Can you phone call in? Is that approved?
No, it's
behavior?
better to meet in person, unfortunately, because the meetings are kind of rigid that way. I'm not. What we're doing is, you're going to be revising something. Putting everything in the operating procedures per our discussion, printing out a couple things. Brian's going to help with a ballot sample, and then we're going to put the two things together with the notes, and then we're going to email out an agenda.
A draft potential to the entire board.
Right.
For them to just review,
react to, send a comment, or
with our next meeting scheduled sometime in January, that if they care about any of it, they need to come to that bylaws meeting in January.
To tweak the operating procedures. Right. Okay.
Is this the current proposed new bylaw?
It needs to be. It's mostly, but it needs.
You'll get one more that will be. Reflective.
Yeah,
completely.
like we just made some.
It's close though. It's close.
It's very close.
Can I send you just a couple things I have?
Absolutely.
I actually would like you to spend some time with me, but that's all right.
Please ignore the 14-year-old vote thing that he said. Okay, we don't want that.
No, look.
Everything's going to stay the same. We're just going to move it.
I think that
I just have a couple of things that I think should also be moved to operate from here.
Oh, from this document?
For this 5-page?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. What you got?
Well, not that I want to make a habit of agreeing with Richard Adams, but listing out the committee names in the bylaws has been a sticking point for a while, including for me.
So
It should be an operating.
It should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, I'm going to tell you why it's parliamentary. Why you have some of them in committees that are standing committees.
Yeah.
And those are because those committees never the bank account is always open. So the committee that's in charge of that, it can't ever go dark. It can't ever not have somebody in charge.
Can there be some sort of note where standing committees can be added without being added to the bylaws?
Well,
Because that's the issue we're having right now with homelessness, as well as my committee is not on here either, and it hasn't been. Sustainability doesn't exist.
well, those should be in operations.
That's what I mean. Like, but right now.
Yeah. I just that's one of the reasons I'm not in the committee.
No, that's
so
fine.
I don't know what's.
No, I mean currently our bylaws are that the only standing committees that we can have are the ones that are specifically listed in the bylaws.
Right, so
which makes it very hard to add committees when there's a moratorium.
Oh, you can, the president of the neighborhood council can add a committee at any time for any reason through a
Ad hoc.
motion.
Ad
Yes.
hoc can.
Yes,
Right.
But not if
absolutely.
it's a standing committee.
Well, you see the standing committees. I mean, I was trying to narrow that down, but I didn't know how important these were.
Sure.
So I'm happy to, like, I think you have to have
Was
wherever
public
that-
safety in standing?
It is
I-
currently not. It's in
Because
ad hoc.
I think the past presidents have added committees, added standing committees. They were not ad hoc.
They didn't understand what
Yeah.
the nature of a standing committee is, and that's the fact.
So
The
they
standing
that was
committee
wrong.
has
It
to
is.
always be available, no matter what, 24/7.
And meet at a regular time.
Yeah.
Well, the meeting is once a quarter minimum.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that their operations never end.
Mm-hmm.
See, the outreach committee, their operations end. The party's over. It's done. They can
done.
they can disappear.
Right.
But the bank account's always open.
Gotcha.
Well, and there's always land use.
Well, that's why I changed. This is different than what's in the current bylaws. I mean, I've moved those to ad hoc. I moved crime and safety, outreach, transportation, and cultural affairs to ad hoc
Well-
because they were in standing.
Here's
and
the
they
thing.
shouldn't be.
Ad hoc, because of the nature of, or the temporary nature of an ad hoc committee, should they be listed there at all? Because there could be
I would
different.
be very happy to take it out. I think I listed there because I didn't know what the hell I was
Right.
doing, basically.
Just because of the nature of what an ad hoc committee is. I'm just because of what we've been up against since as long as I've been
Practically,
here.
yeah.
Not for very long, but definitely for 6 months. Having the committees listed in the bylaws has been a sticking point.
So what
Well,
committee
isn't
should be
it
listed?
just the one? It's the sticking point is the ones that aren't listed there, not the ones that are.
Right.
Yeah.
It's mostly the ones.
So I
that
don't
are-
see any bad thing with leaving the ones that are there listed. We just are not
But you have
listing
to
them
put,
all.
but you do have to then put a line in there where it says that standing committees can be added without having them listed within the bylaws.
No, not a standing committee.
Okay. Well, let's define what our standing committees are. What are our standing
was just-
committees currently?
well,
Barry,
well-
you know.
I'll
You know?
bring it up. I got 'em.
I think
Okay.
they all are, except
They
sustainability
all-
and public safety.
As far as I know, sustainability is a standing
Well,
committee.
government affairs is a standing committee,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to move them out.
and
That's what I was
budget
trying to
budget
do.
committee is a weird one because it doesn't meet every month.
Yeah, but
It just has to
there's
be
always
There's always a
money to
budget.
deal with.
But the budget is, and I think that's where that's a little vague to me too. The budget normally is where the treasurer is, and he's sitting there because there's always money and there's always, you can't ever not have that happen.
Officially, we have no ad hoc committees, except for I think with the possible exception of homelessness, just because to work around
Right.
that rule. But the current committees right now are budget, bylaws and procedures, cultural affairs, homelessness, government affairs, land use, outreach, public safety, sustainability, and transportation.
What's the downside of having homelessness as an ad hoc?
I'm on it. I'm not the chair. I just know that right now it keeps getting hit because we can't make changes to the bylaws.
In other words, it was attacked for several meetings
Yes.
by
Because
one
it
of our
was-
attackers.
It wasn't,
They were saying its auspices were not kosher.
which I believe kind of was the case, but
But not if it's ad hoc.
if it's an
Not
ad
if it's
hoc.
ad hoc. So
not-
technically it
I
is
think
ad
it
hoc.
is now because of
Right.
that, but it's before it wasn't, and it was having trouble getting off the ground
Right.
because it kept getting, hit for procedural things, which whatever. I mean,
That's
I'm
not
fine
a
with that.
that's not a bylaws issue or an operating procedure. That's just a presidential, not.
I mean, right
Well,
now
like
we
this
can't name standing committee. If we need to add a standing committee, we can't do it every other year
Right.
So I'm going to
because of what the language of our current bylaws says. Not this, but our current bylaws.
That's right.
say.
That's the point.
Let
Why
me
don't
give-
we just
You
have
may
our
not want to.
bylaws say standing committees can be added by a
That's what I'm
majority
trying to say.
vote?
Yeah.
Why can't you?
You do, because the definition of a standing committee, they're constituted to perform a continuing function and remain in existence permanently for
Forever,
the life of
right.
the assembly. So
Right, I get that.
So-
but why can't you add? That's not. I'm not saying
you don't,
say-
because we're trying to make the bylaws have the least amount of control
Well, that's
for
why
done.
I'm saying remove the
Right.
names.
Because
I'm
the reason
going
why
nuts.
we could add a standing committee now, but not every other year
no,
because of
but
the,
I get that.
That's the
Why
best
don't the
reason.
bylaws just say here's our list And if we decide to add another standing committee,
majority vote.
it's done so by a majority vote.
Because the purpose of a standing committee is that it is there until, from the start of the organization until the organization
Right.
no longer exists.
But it's possible in his model that, let's say we wanted to add a health and welfare
But you
committee.
don't
It's going
call
to be
it
there from the
a
beginning.
standing
Oh, right.
committee. I don't think you
But
would call it a standing committee.
sustainability to me is never going to go away.
Right.
The things that it does. Maybe
I'm not-
hopefully homeless
you're-
does, but
you're missing the point though.
Yeah.
The point isn't about how if you need it to run, if you need it to be an organization. So to be an organization, you have to have bylaws. To be an organization. To be an organization, the bank account and all of the money issues.
So it's only bylaws and
And
budget.
government affairs.
Kind of, I mean,
Government
So
affairs.
what's-
you know.
no,
Not really,
that
it's
does
more
not
of a-
either.
What's-
And
And
what's-
that's, you have it listed as standing committee.
What's the
know, but that's 'cause
harm-
I'm not part of this
what's the
group.
harm in leaving that exactly as it is, and anything we add be ad hoc? It doesn't take
not-
away.
Nothing except for his
It doesn't
concern.
take away
Right.
the anything from those ad hoc committees, does it? They meet just like a standing
If
committee.
the committee is to have standing authority to act for the society on matters of a certain class without specific instruction from the assembly. So do you get that? So the
Yeah,
treasurer
they work on their own.
can do shit and doesn't need permission to come back to you and do stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, but that's
If-
not the case. The board votes on anything monetary.
Yes, but
No, but an ad hoc can be. It's like the president can say, "Go study Sportsman's Lodge, you 3 people from the community," and then they go and do that, and then it's done, right? They report back to the
Well,
president.
that's
but
an advisory board. That's a separate.
That's a
thing.
different
And
kind of
doesn't
committee.
ad hoc
Well,
have
ad
to
hoc and
either
advisory is
be
similar.
all board members or all stakeholders?
Yeah.
Well, getting back to what Nancy's saying, it's just, you want to pare it down, there's really 2.
I think there is really 2 that you only want as standing committees. I think, and you don't have to use the word ad hoc.
Yeah.
You can use a special committee, you can use a select committee, there's other language. If
They're the
people
same
have,
thing, though.
they are the same thing, but if people have sort of,
Right. There's a culture question here that could come up in a conversation about operating procedures, which has to do with how many committees make sense. You know, I personally think that too many committees can divide up the people.
the energy.
But on the other hand, I like the idea of people being able to run their own little meetings, so I like that idea. So I think that limiting, though, but again, we're talking about what's in the structure bylaws and what is to be determined in operating procedures. So the 2 bylaws and treasurer or budget are standing committees. Public safety and land use have always been the most widely attended of our committee meetings. So in Studio City, those are standing committees, and transportation, obviously.
there's no-
And
Transportation.
GAC. 'cause
And
there's
government
a-
affairs for long, right.
But I think the question is on like the land use that you guys are fed, and I don't know.
Right.
You guys are fed requests by the city or by whomever
The city.
to deal
Applicant.
with it, and you don't have a choice of whether you are going to deal with it or not. You have to deal with it because it's coming in
Right,
at
there's a
you.
flow,
right?
right.
So there's a
Well,
place for it to
sometimes
go.
we don't, but theoretically we do.
So it's standing, so it's always there if you're getting information that you need to handle and deal with.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's
That's-
up to the committee chair to whether or not he's going to act on it, so.
But it has to go to someplace. It has
Right.
to have a committee to go to.
Yes.
To deal. So that's kind of the idea, and
But
that's
that's
sort
fair.
of why I think I left land use in there. You know, I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure what they did.
right.
I mean, do you always have an issue with public safety? Or is there a time when, oh my gosh, we have a new issue with public safety?
We get new ones from time to time.
So would it, if you solve it, would it go away?
No.
Would that committee disappear?
I don't think public safety will ever disappear.
Right. It's
Yeah.
a
I
big
I mean,
part of the
it's that's the
community.
thing. It's about crime
Yeah.
and police and
Yeah.
that-
It's the centerpiece of what people care about.
Right.
So what? How can we simplify this? Because I get what we're looking at. We're looking at a bunch of committees and 2 categories in the operating procedures and in the structural bylaws.
Right.
So let's just decide what we think. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to cut out the existing committees from the bylaws. unless we feel there's a reason to. In other words, it will be weird if people go, what? Transportation and public safety aren't in here anymore? But if we think it's worth doing, let's do it. But I don't think it's worth doing because I can't see the
more
benefit.
things you can move into the operating procedure,
Gives
you
more freedom.
Is more
Yes,
freedom.
that's
true.
And that has nothing to do with
Yeah.
whether the committee exists or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
right,
saying
right,
keep
good
them all.
point.
I'm just
Okay.
saying like committees. There are standing committees. Here's how we add them. Here's what it
This
is.
is
Oh,
what
that's
the
great.
bylaws
Right,
The list
right.
of which,
Blank
the list
page.
of which are
The
standing
list of which
committees.
can be found in the operating
Operating
procedures.
That's the only thing I'm saying. Is like
That's a
just-
great idea.
We don't list
you
the
agree with that?
names of the committees in the bylaws.
Right.
At all.
At all.
Yeah.
Because then we're
that's
not
right.
locked into
Right.
a list of committees.
Right.
We can add them or subtract them at will.
Yeah.
As a board vote.
Which-
I like it. It's your theme.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
the
what do you
only thing
think?
I-
Well,
Yeah.
except for
The two.
the bylaws in the bank account.
Okay, the bylaws and the treasurer meets in the
Bylaws,
See, where
bylaws
is-
and budget.
Yeah, I'm the
Budget.
budget chair for the moment, but
Well, is that where the treasurer? Is that where the bank account? Is that where you guys make
Yeah.
all those decisions about?
we approve expenditures and move and imagine how
And the
we're
treasurer
spending.
is on that committee.
He serves
chair.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you
It's up
could
to you
just
guys.
you
I
could
mean, you're
just
the
leave
ones that-
bylaws and budget and put everything else in operating.
Budget, bylaws.
We may have a PR
and
problem
others
with
listed
that.
in. You know,
That's
We may have a PR problem with
For
that.
what?
now.
The problem comes in, and I'm no bylaws expert. I've learned a lot because you can do Command F on my Mac and I can search for things. Now I can be a bylaws expert like everybody else. But it's a perception thing because I don't think most people on the board actually understand the bylaws, which is the logjam. So
Yes.
whoever says, well, in the bylaws it says everybody freezes
Right.
because they don't know it.
Yeah.
So as simple as this can be cobbled together to present, which is
Right.
I don't think you want to get too far in the weeds about changing the bylaws, what you want to present. It's just like
Right.
10, 15, 10, 5, and
Exactly.
we'll deal
That-
with the rest
that's right.
of it.
So-
The other thing is when the chairman is given a motion, somebody's coming in and they want something done with this land or they want a liquor license or whatever, that the chairman then doesn't have to create a committee if there's no committee for it to go to, right? So you want to have those committees for it to go to.
Yeah.
All
we
ready to
already
go.
have that.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Right.
So it's balance. There's a balance here going on. That's what I'm saying.
So make a recommendation if you want. Should we cut everything except for the bare minimum, which is bylaws, budget, and land use, because that's what you put in there, public safety and yeah, or move them all. There's something clean about moving them all. If it does it create a problem for you in your understanding of how? I mean, if we move them all,
Well,
has to be as I mean,
I mean, you have to address committees.
right.
Just what they are.
And when you address them, I mean, there's a section for standing and there's a section for not
Right.
standing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I was on this committee right now, I would say, can we please just keep in standing committees the ones that people are, that the stakeholders, not the board, the stakeholders are going to freak out if they don't
Right.
know that it's sitting there.
Well, you're gonna.
I'd say
it'd
all
be
of
the same
them.
list. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's like everyone has their own
Issue.
thing that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And people come to those board meetings with a very specific agenda item in mind. Sometimes it is about sustainability. Sometimes it is about public safety. A lot of times it's about homelessness lately. I mean, you're going to get to a point where you'd be at risk of telling a stakeholder that their issue is not as important as the
If
other
you don't
one.
have
That's
all
right.
of them on there.
Or none of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
that's why you
anything,
have to
I
have
would
none of
just
them.
say leave it as is and make the change to add the 2 new ones. So
But then
they're
but
all
we're just going to
in
run into
bylaws.
another problem later if we end up having.
But
to
it
add
can,
another,
but it can be
But-
ad
So
hoc
can we take
until
them
it
all out?
can
That's
be
what you're trying to
made
do. Can we take them
permanent.
all
Yeah.
out? Okay, let me look.
I suppose.
You guys can go on. Let me look here. Let's
Yeah.
see what
I mean,
We don't add-
I think that
No,
that-
but,
Committees very often.
But it is a problem that's been happening.
well, we don't add committees very often, and yet we've added 2 in the last couple of years.
Yes,
So,
Yeah.
exactly.
so it's hard to
The
know.
other thing I wanted to just to go on this, there's never been, and maybe this is an operating procedure thing, but hasn't been in either our current bylaws, operating position, or even Robert's Rules of Order, a way to remove committee members.
The power to appoint is the power to remove.
Yeah.
So if
the chair of
More
that
gonna apply-
committee,
The
can say
president.
you're
No,
off
no,
it.
no, it's the
But-
power to appoint.
right.
So if the president of the board appoint somebody to a committee,
Right.
only that president can remove
But it
them.
also does say that the committee members can be removed by a majority of the board members. So it's
Right.
like if I have someone in
Right.
sustainability, that's what it says.
I know,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. That's the stuff
But-
that's got to go.
No, but I get it. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like maybe we should,
But correct
But
me if
what's
I'm wrong.
wrong with
Correct me
having
if
the
I'm wrong.
or? You can do
It's
it one
so
way or the other.
historically.
so-
Yeah, sorry.
It's so complicated. It's just every answer to every issue and every question is already in a what is a 716-page book.
Right.
Why recreate it and not even cover everything?
As long as we have you around all the time.
Well, no, you can buy the book.
I know.
And there's a reference. It's like it's a dictionary. You don't have to know every
But
word.
it looks like your thumb's attached to the book, so if we buy the book, you're coming with it.
And also,
At this
historically in this country,
At
the
this
power to
point.
appoint and the power to remove have not been synonymous.
No.
In total.
But I thought, correct me if I'm
Andrew
wrong,
Johnson.
but yeah.
But I
Well-
mean, that's what it is. It's not. It may be implied, but whenever there's an actual challenge to that, it never holds up until 50 years later. I mean, regardless of the level
Because
of
nobody
government.
knows this book.
But it's not just the book. The book is. I mean, the book is nice, but it's not ultimately binding. towards
Sure,
a lot
it's
of
in the
people.
bylaws.
It-
It's a governing authority. But because
Right.
the bylaws contradict the book.
That's my
The
point.
bylaws
As soon as
take
it's held up to
precedence.
any sort of scrutiny, it falls apart. That's
So what's the
if someone
fix?
wants to go around it,
Right.
it's very easy to do so. Because all they have to do. That's what I do.
Right.
I find we want to do this. Fine. I go to Roberts. I go to Bylaws. I go to Operating Procedure, and I just start poking holes until I can find the avenue.
Right, to get
of
through
which
to what
can
we
get-
wanna do.
Get it
Right.
done.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I do it all right.
Right.
But that's the problem is that because it doesn't hold scrutiny.
Yeah.
As soon as you just blow on it slightly,
Right.
it's.
So how can we resolve it? What do you suggest?
My suggestion is to remove all names of committee names from the bylaws and refer to. And if we need to have something in those sections, because Dunn does require like a certain format and structure, we explain what they are. You don't have to list them. We can just say standing committees are blah blah blah.
What,
They are.
a committee that focuses on the safety of the community?
Or a standing
the-
committee is exactly what she said. The standing committee is a committee that deals with the ongoing business, from the life of the board or whatever. Ad hoc are more temporary, blah blah blah. We just have to explain them. We don't have to list any of them.
I like that idea.
But it's the interesting point to me is what Dunn requires, because Dunn does not, I don't know this for sure, but Dunn doesn't have, like, here's a new neighborhood council. Here's your plate to, your
Template.
your template
Yeah.
to work from.
It does.
They do?
Dunn has a
right here.
template table of contents to which
right
you
here.
should fill in
I should read that.
section by section.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
So,
I have to go.
Okay.
Because I have to
Okay.
get up early.
Yeah, yeah.
I got it.
So just
Okay,
but
so-
it's not, so you say
I will
whenever
clue
you
you in.
schedule it, just let me know.
Yeah, and you'll
and if
tell
I
us
how
can,
we
I
do it,
can.
and we won't say what
Generally,
they
you
want.
That's
work
my point.
all day.
Yeah, because
until
like
the
they have
afternoon or
this,
evening.
right? They give
Okay.
you this.
You're
So
up
you have to have
I'll-
to address all
you
these
know,
things.
I'll
so
dial you in.
Article
And,
7 committees.
And either way, we'll
you
make
get
sure
to
that you have all the
determine every
information.
And I-
neighborhood council gets to
Probably
determine what
best
is
for
going to go
me
in that
is
So
section.
we'll leave all the
Friday
committees as
evening or
standing
Saturday
committees
Then they-
in the
day.
operating procedures.
Yes.
But I don't
then
know
they
if
have
you
to
can
approve
wait
it,
that
as
long.
opposed to- they should know there's things that
Yeah.
there's fine a
Absolutely,
small subset
but
that
even
always
Robert's Rules of Order, says that you shouldn't list the the
But
committees
you may need to
in the
before then.
bylaws.
Maybe.
It's
I'll
all
let
about
you
like just
know.
referring
Okay,
it to
thanks.
outside. I'm also going through that book to make this recommendation.
What's good about removing things from bylaws is
Thank you, Barry.
nuisance outsider attacks.
I'm a logistics nerd as much as anybody.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well, so
that's my recommendation. It doesn't have to be followed. I'm
what
just
do you
saying
think?
this.
Do you like that recommendation? Okay, cool. So then we're on that. Now, let's just go through the lightning round of what else we can. How can we be helpful to you, and how can what should we also be thinking about? Because this is the main thing is, as we discussed, pushing it into a format that the board can go, oh, okay, this looks pretty good. This looks better.
Mm-hmm.
I support this. I'll definitely vote for it. And then we'll have a bureaucratic problem downtown, which we can deal with. So I think we're close, right? I mean, we're basically ready
Yeah,
to
I
wrap
think-
this
yeah.
meeting. Just so I'm clear, do we need to meet a small group of us or all of us, another bylaw committee meeting where we send out the state?
We need to have a motion to send it to we need a motion to send whatever we're going to send to the board,
Right.
a
Okay.
draft to the board.
So let's
But
do
we
that.
can make that motion now and have it be the draft that we're
Yeah,
gonna
maybe
have.
we don't have to meet. Is that the point? Because we had a lot of input. We can make a motion, and I will make the motion to send to the board. Okay, Brian will make the motion. Maybe it would be better. To
Do I
send
make
to
the
the
motion?
Because I'm the president.
I'd
we're
like to
just-
propose a motion that we send to the board whatever we've approved.
Yeah, what we've approved tonight,
I
the
don't know the language for
10-5,
the rest of it, but
the 10-5 protocol with a ballot sheet, a revised set of bylaws that will accommodate same, pointing most things to the operating procedures.
yeah. And then you need a second, right?
Second.
Great.
Good. It's unanimous. Okay, and then, so just so I'm clear on the timeline, so we'll work quickly. Now, we have to post our agenda for a board meeting on Sunday night of next week, of this, 1 week from tonight.
Yes.
So that night, in theory,
We don't, yeah, we give them now the agenda.
I can send the agenda out tomorrow, right?
You can send it out right now that we will have a motion to bring to the board regarding the bylaws.
Yeah.
And because we're not asking them to vote on anything on the 19th.
Bylaws committee.
We're giving them the draft on the 19th.
I
Whoa.
see. Okay. That's why we can do that.
Well, wait, but if we give them the draft 72 hours before the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
because that's when we send our agendas out.
I don't know that you have to.
Well, that's how the Brown Act works. That's what we do.
But
So
we're
we-
not asking for a vote. You're not
but
asking for a vote on the. I don't think you're asking for a vote on the 19th.
I
You're
am asking for a
people.
vote on the 19th.
No, you need to. You're asking for the people who care about this to come to the next bylaws meeting to have input on
Okay.
it.
But what about approving the 10-5?
That's a separate issue, right?
Is that a separate issue?
I think 10-5 election and then the bylaws change. Those are two separate.
Except for that, to enact the 10-5 way we vote board
Yeah.
composition, it needs it.
The bylaws have
It
to change.
impacts the bylaws. That's
Right.
why. So what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do,
I would have a vote
is
on the
package.
10-5 at the 19th, but a draft of the entire bylaws with operating the whole package together.
But if that second
'Cause-
part is not voted on, just playing the devil's advocate, that we only voted on a shard of composition and not the way it would link to the entire, board bylaws and procedure, then we can't really shove it on
Well-
their desk and say it's ready to go. So our board is primed for this now. So maybe what has to happen, and I don't want to cause more burden than is necessary, maybe we do need to call another bylaws meeting. I know that's annoying, but just a short meeting from which people will come if they want to weigh in on what is this document, that won't take us long to. Then just hear me out. Then that input would funnel into a meeting like this. We may or may not get people, but we hope that people would weigh in. The board would get to see it, and then a kosher way because they'd be seeing it on an agenda.
Oh,
And
you
then-
mean having the meeting before the 19th? with
Yeah,
the-
I'm
with-
saying
with
have a
board members?
bylaws meeting between the 9th and the 19th so that it looks like we're working
But
on
not
it, which
just
we
us,
are.
not just us.
Us, but all of our meetings are open to the public.
I understand, but
Right.
but having already previously given the draft to the board.
Yeah, I want to attach the draft to the bylaw. I want to say we met on Sunday tonight, the 9th, and we're going to meet again on Wednesday at 8 or 7 o'clock quickly, and we want to hear from you about this so that the agenda will go out. They'll look at it. They'll go, oh, okay, simpler, cleaner. I'm good. And then if they're not good, let's assume someone's not good, they come and say, this is ridiculous. We say, oh, thank you for sharing. We have that input. There's more input. And then out of that bylaws committee, we make the motion, the second meeting, to go to the board with a packet that's ready to be voted on. Now, again, you don't have to vote on it. If you say, this is way too, it's been up for twice on the agenda, these guys are talking about, you said 10-5, but there's other things going on in here, then it may not pass, but it might. Yeah.
I think that we can do it if we can limit it to the election section on both documents, on both the operating and the bylaws
Mhm.
documents. I think that we haven't
That's a
had
good
enough
point.
discussion on the other.
I agree.
on the other topics.
And I would love to keep all the rest the same and be able to make that representation that nothing has changed except for the election section. And the rest of it is into the operating procedures.
There's no way I'll be able to convince people of that until you have also a draft operating procedures to match with this document.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But that operating procedures should be
But it's
pretty
just-
easy since
but it's
we're
just
moving
the
it
engine.
out and
It
in.
should be, but like right now.
But
you
I
know,
want to
try
make the case that it's the same. We're not changing
you have to
anything
show them
but
it's the same.
oh, I will.
Right,
We-
because-
we'll move it into a document called operating procedures.
Because if we don't have
clean
it
that
yet,
up and say,
people are
look,
just
it's
gonna
exactly the
say that,
same.
like, oh,
yeah,
this is a big
Hold on.
and we
hold
want
on.
to advertise that it's the same. Sure.
Hold on though. When we're talking, my brain isn't connecting
Okay.
here. Election versus entire document.
Yes.
Are we talking about just the election section or the entire document?
I think that's kind of what we're figuring out.
Right. I think what we're talking about, because first of all, we already did the election section. Looks great.
Yeah,
Done.
but there's still tweaks that need to be made.
Right.
We made-
But they're
we-
minor and they're easy.
Yeah, right.
Okay. The entire 20-page document down to a 5-page document is great.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's missing is the third wheel, which is the operating procedure.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge, but if we don't amend it radically yet, and say the beauty of it is if we approve these bylaw changes, we can do that to our heart's content. You know, so the idea there is to try to push forward the agenda of the election revisions and the bylaw changes required, including no content changes to the operating stuff, but it's all in the operating procedures for now. If you like that, raise your hand.
And what's your explanation of why you want to do it?
The reason why we want to do it is because coming up is another cycle in the middle of the year where they're going to be voting, and we want to clean up the mess so that people can access this process and be a part of our
Not
board.
the 10-5 part, but the moving, just playing devil's
All of it,
advocate.
because we've run up against the reason why.
But just
Sure.
keying off what you're saying, you're
Yeah.
saying that you just want to, you're not changing a lot of it, you're just moving it.
We're moving it
So
into a
that's-
section where it can be changed without interference.
I'll give you the answer.
Without done.
Right. Well,
Done.
that's
No,
the thing.
I understand.
We are
but
trying
I'm just
to.
saying, I'm trying to play devil's
Right,
advocate.
no,
no,
appreciate it.
Somebody-
We appreciate
I have an
that.
answer for you.
that
Yes.
wants it to stay the same because it's gamed for them. Because
Right.
it sounds like
Right.
it's. You know
But
what
the
I'm
answer is that we want to re-empower Studio City and the citizens within it and the stakeholders within it to make the decisions for this area. And we no longer want to have,
Perfect.
an outside force cutting us off the
Imposing.
knees 50% of the time.
That's right.
Yeah,
Imposing
that's it.
its power over us in a way that is unhelpful and really petty and silly and often wrong. But we don't have to get into
Because
those
you
ad
want your
hominem.
neighbor
Yeah.
to make the decision, not a faceless. I don't have to say that, but
Nice.
that's what it is. It's like
So I don't know. It's a lot to ask, and I'm
Yeah.
perfectly prepared if people want to say I don't think we can do it. It's too fast. But I'm hoping that we can do, even if it's like a kind of a, I don't want to say a half measure because I know that I'm often against that. I like to fight hard all the way, but maybe this is the way to go. That we just tweak the election stuff, put in a few things, clean up the committee pieces that we just talked about, and then what you've been doing it for the moment, which is just throwing it all into a document. You could look at it, try to give it a little, he could look at it, we could look at it, and kind of like help you decide, okay, good enough, for now. It's the same content. It's been a little bit improved for structure, but, maybe we can sell that to the board on all these points. I don't know. I think it's possible. What do you think? I mean, do you want to try, or do you think it's too much?
I don't want to be solely responsible for having
No, that's
made
why I'm-
sure that I collected all of the
you
data from
shouldn't
the
have.
bylaws and got it into the operating.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing the first draft, but I need some serious eyes.
I can be.
Oh,
looking
we'll
at
definitely
that
look. We will definitely
so that
help.
I'm not the sole person covering it.
I can't speak for
Understandable.
Peter, but I
Right.
can speak for myself.
Now, the question is, do we need, if you're looking at timing and everything needs a 3 days notice.
Cookies.
That's the problem.
Yeah, no,
Get
it's
done
not a
tomorrow.
problem. It's not a problem. No, tomorrow. Yeah, right. But here's the thing. I prefer to move quickly. But we can be realistic. Barry said that he could come to a meeting on Friday. I don't know if
Right.
that's good. So that would be inclusive, because I do like to include, even though he would like to, So if we have it on Friday, that means we have to post it Tuesday for a full. And by the way, you could always do a special, but that does not engender trust in people when you move fast. So I would rather do 72-hour notice, which for Friday would be, if it's Friday at 6, can people meet up Friday at 6?
It's
this
really
room?
hard for me to do anything at 6.
Okay, 7.
7 is better. I might be late.
Okay. It's also probably like Christmas or something I'm forgetting. No, it's
Well,
not. Yeah,
I
I
get out
understand.
of work at 7.
I understand. That's
Yeah.
fine. We could even make it 7:15 if people have dinner and then they can come for an hour. It's not going to be a long meeting. It's just to be. We want to hear from people. You know, we want to be open and share what we got.
But if a lot of people come, it's going to be a long meeting.
Yeah, but they won't. But they might. And again, we would like. Long is not our problem.
Yeah.
But Friday at 7 means Thursday,
Yeah,
Wednesday,
Tuesday, you're right.
Tuesday night. So Tuesday night. Yeah, by Tuesday at 6 o'clock, if we, or even 5 or 6 or whatever, I could print out an agenda, post it for a Friday meeting. We could come back, and then by Sunday, we could incorporate any tweaks or revisions, and then agendize for our Wednesday meeting. You know, it's a little bit of a Hail Mary, but I think it's probably doable. This is stuff we've been
Is
looking at for a
Patrick
while.
given the deadline for getting motions into him?
No, but I did talk to him. He confirmed we're having a meeting. He told me to write
text him today too.
Good. So, you know, and we should give it a little time. I mean, I won't put a lot of other stuff on the agenda.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
because
I think that's good.
You know, I want to give people a chance to say, this is ridiculous. You know,
And they will.
And they will. But what I don't
You
want to
should
give
put
them a
anything
chance
on
to
the
do.
agenda.
Yeah. Nothing, you're saying.
Nothing else.
Well, that may
Nothing
be.
else.
I'm on board with that. I mean, I would love to stick the mobile pit stop on there, but it's fine. No, there may be a few other things, but they will be a quick vote. Most of the conversation will be on this. And
By the way, the mobile pit stop is not bylaws.
no, I know, it's a different guy. I'm wearing several hats. Stay on point. You're disrupting the meeting. Right. So I would say we have a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the only problem is that Peter's going to go to Carmel, and then we're going to be
I am,
doomed.
so you might have to do.
Wait,
an
are you going to
alternate
Carmel?
You might have to do an alternate location in front of the post office or the library in Carmel. But that's legal, actually.
Wait, but let me just. But
You
if
mean I
we
get to go to Carmel this weekend?
Yeah, come
Sounds
on up.
great.
3.
Can we
Interesting.
just back it in? Okay, if they meet on the 19th, when do they have to have their notice?
Sunday night at 7. It
By
has to be
Sunday
posted.
night. So we
It's gonna
have
be
to
posted
have
by then.
our meeting before Sunday night.
Yeah, we could meet
So
Saturday morning.
Maybe we.
Are you really going this weekend, or you're not sure?
I don't know yet, because of that other issue I told you about, but.
Oh yeah, probably
I have a
not.
meeting-
Actually,
I have a meeting on Tuesday, and depending on what she finds out, I may or may not go.
Okay.
Don't know yet.
Oh,
And
I
if you
see.
go, are you gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I'll be gone, to be back on the 18th,
Okay.
19th.
Ooh.
So your best bet is Wednesday, Sunday is Friday.
Well,
Yeah.
Barry is Friday, and he
But you
confirmed.
actually can hold a meeting, I don't know, have another location listed.
We could do that,
Yeah,
but
as
that
long
would be
as it has-
Does
testing.
it have to
It's-
be in the neighborhood council?
No, it
No, we
has
just
to
have to
be-
agendize
It
it.
has to be ADA compliant, and you have to put it on the agenda.
Right.
And literally, it's just.
We can teleconference them in. We could experiment with that. Although,
It's legal.
on something like this, I would like to experiment knowing that we have a quorum anyway,
Right.
because I don't want to lose it. But again, these committees, the quorum is less meaningful than at the board level, where it does matter.
Can you scramble for another member?
Well, Barry said he'd be here, and so that's 4.
So you're good?
And Carter may materialize.
Oh, okay.
So you know, I mean, and possibly Patrick, if
Well,
necessary.
I'm just trying to back in if 3 days notice because in order for me
Patrick doesn't come.
to do it, to do the
Good
operations,
point. Yeah,
I would don't even have it redlined. I'd have to type in. I have to type in the entire document, right?
yeah.
'Cause
Well,
I
we
don't
can
have
help
it
with that a
redlined.
little bit if you want.
And then have you guys have time to go over it? Like when are you going to go over it?
I can go over it.
When?
He never sleeps.
I was gonna say.
None of us sleep.
As soon as it's done, I will go over it. The first draft.
Because it has to be done by Tuesday.
Right.
So you have to go over it, find corrections, and then it has to get corrected, and all that has to be done by Tuesday night.
Right.
Yeah.
We can do it.
If
we
it's,
can do
well,
it.
if the first draft is done tomorrow, is that what we're talking about? We're talking about Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, practically.
Volunteer
If we
for that.
front load, no, but if once you finish the
It's-
draft, you can.
Yeah.
Then I can quit the bylaws committee.
We signed her up. We got her,
Yeah.
but we'll never get rid of her. Right.
Yeah. Once you
Okay.
do that,
Okay.
send it over to me. I will look over it.
I mean, look,
Have
if-
notes
Okay, that's
that-
fine.
If it
That's
let me
fine.
let me raise
That's fine.
let me raise another point. If it's easier for people to meet Saturday,
on Bill of Rights stuff.
I mean, I was touched by the fact that somebody showed up at our meeting,
That
which
was
is
great.
a miracle, and I love that. And we got a good person in one of my other meetings too, Rosner. He's now on the committee.
Yeah.
But my point is that there's something about meeting on the weekends that's interesting. I didn't think about that, but it's true. People are
Yeah.
loafing around all weekend. They're busy all week. So these night meetings are great, but
some
sometimes,
people
I know, it goes both
loafing
ways.
around.
No, I know, nobody's loafing around. Everybody's busy, but
I'm
you get my
slammed
point. Right, I
all
know,
week.
I've
24/7.
got nothing to do tomorrow. I'm loafing all
Oh,
day.
It's
yeah,
great.
right.
You should look over some proper procedures.
Everybody's loafing around
Yeah.
doing nothing at all time. No, but my point is that if we wanted to do Wednesday, Saturday, we could. But
Do
that,
we have quorum?
well, he's available Friday or Saturday.
And do we have-
So we are,
So he's available Saturday too?
he said he's available Friday or Saturday. It's better for him. Just let me know. So he could tank the whole thing if he wants, but I don't think he will.
What if you
Peter may not go. We'll know that tomorrow.
Put the alternate. That's serious. What if you put the alternate location on the agenda? And if
Yeah.
it shows up, great. Then I don't have to call in.
Right. We could do that. Or we could also check with Carter.
Well,
I mean, let's.
Okay, so we have, the point is to have options. The point
Right.
is, if we can't pull this together by Tuesday night.
We have until Wednesday, right? We can do it Wednesday. That's
my- that was where
it's
I
a
was going
backup
with it.
plan. I think
Yeah.
that's what we'll do.
That's
Okay.
fine.
So that I would move that we adopt that plan. And are we clear on it, or do you want to state it back once so that we're clear? Or
I'm going to stay up all night and type up the operation.
You
All right.
Why are you
Was
doing
it-
that?
Because I don't have a copy. I have to.
It's on the website. The current operating procedures.
I know, but
Do you want me to send it to you?
no. What I want you to do is pull it down and then put it into a document, a docs, or
I
a
think it
pages.
already is, actually. Let me see. About
it's
us.
not a
it's a
it's a-
PDF.
I don't think it is. I think it's a Word doc. I was just looking at it today.
that means anybody can change it. Maybe
well,
we
they
should change
well,
it.
not on the website, but
If you can get that to me, that would be very, very helpful.
I will do that.
So I will. Be,
Oh, it is a PDF. I'll just change it into a because the first line is download the
Okay.
as a PDF.
You have a converter thingy, right?
I copy it and I paste it in a Word document.
I have a thing that converts those. So you want that.
Well,
you guys are both clever. Let's
Okay,
compare
I
notes.
want the converter. I don't know what the I don't like
It's the same
converter.
thing.
it's the same
Fine,
thing.
fine.
I do this for a living. Not
So
this specific.
I'm gonna type it up. I'm gonna get it to you guys by end of day tomorrow night.
Great.
Right.
I'm gonna get it to you because I don't know your.
Yeah, I'll forward
really
it to them
like it.
immediately. But we should exchange emails. It's
And then-
B Carroll. You
Yeah.
want to jot it down? Oh, we'll
Yeah.
email you. We'll email you.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's fine.
fair enough. And then we're going to move diligently, and then we're gonna work on an agenda item for bylaws to say, look, and then people are going to come and say, huh? And then
So-
we're going to say it's on the board agenda.
Yeah.
And people are going to go, huh? And then we're going to vote on it and stuff it through. No, I think people are going to be enthused because it's all in the interest of transparency and clarity
Yeah.
and making it better. I mean, that's what I think. So
And
I
all you
really
need is what?
appreciate
How many do you
your
need?
effort.
8 to vote it?
Yeah, we need 8.
Yeah, good.
We need 8.
You don't need 2/3.
Bylaws?
Oh,
We might.
yeah, you might need 2/3.
Yeah, you need 2/3 for bylaws.
All right,
That's
so then we
right.
need 2/3.
That's right.
Well, we'll do the best we can. That's all we can do.
Cool.
And once they figure out what we're doing, they'll drop like flies, and we'll still have the work product. That's the beauty of it. So even if
I
we
can still
don't,
quit.
right, you can still quit, but you won't. But
you
if it
won't.
doesn't work, we cannot be upset. We will be empowered to stuff it through because we can always meet in early January. Even though I'm saying we should resolve it by December 19th so people can relax. But if we can't, somehow the board doesn't, maybe we can call a special board meeting to vote it through. I mean, once we make it clear what we're doing, people will see that we're not trying to upset things, we're trying to improve things. I think they'll get on board. So maybe they will show up. So I don't know. Motion to adjourn?
Second.